Signing day to everybody. It's the Illini Inquirer live signing day special podcast. It's Jeremy Werner with Joey Wagner, and we have been busy this morning, Joey, with 19 national letters of intent signed for the Illini. We'll talk about a lot of the high school prospects on this show, including 3 JUCO prospects. Want to add to that as well. And there's transfer news happening, which is what makes this day also interesting. Is there's so much going on. This is such a critical time for roster building, but the Illini staff, which has been working for more than a year, really, Joey, and some of these guys of putting this class together, it all comes to a culmination today. I know it's an exciting day in that building. We'll break down what we think of the class, all of that. And we have so many special guests. We got Barry Lunny Jr., the Illinois offensive coordinator, joining us at 2:40 in about 10 minutes here. Aaron Henry joining us right after that. And then we're going to talk with 3 Illini signees. That includes A.J. Dennis, the prize 4-star prospect, quarterback Trey Petty, and wide receiver out of Chicago Morgan Park, Tyshawn Griffin. I'm excited for this, Joey. We started this last year. It was your idea. You executed this really well, and excited to take it to another level this year.
It's so fun to be able to get a chance to talk to these guys and to hear the coaches be able to acknowledge them, because heck, it feels like we've been talking to Eddie Turk for 2 years and the coaching staff couldn't even acknowledge that they've ever heard of the guy. So it's fun to be able to mesh these 2 different parts of our work life and just get a chance to talk to some of these guys. And I think it helps for fans just to hear their voice, to see their face, to do all that, which we encourage you to read our articles, but I know it helps a lot to be able to put a name to a face and be able to have that interaction. So it's a lot of fun. The end of a busy day for us, but it's worth it.
Yeah, and we look at this 2024 class right now. It's number 43 in the composite. It's a 3rd straight top 50 class, prep recruiting class, JUCO recruiting class, however you want to say it. That's 3 straight top 50 classes for Brett Bielema. And I said on the podcast the other day, Joey, obviously the Big Ten is recruiting at a high level. You got to continue to up the talent. But it's certainly in the prep recruiting realm, if you go by the on-paper numbers in the composite, has been better. And the transfers are happening right now, and Illinois just got a huge transfer. And I know I want to focus on so much of the preps, but how do you not talk about the guy who's going to make probably a bigger impact than anybody added in this class next year with J.C. Davis, New Mexico offensive line transfer, just announced his commitment to Illinois. He talked with 24/7 Sports. Chris Hummer had a long list of schools who were in on him, but Illinois prioritized him. From what I hear, he was their number 1 target at offensive tackle. He is slated to be their starter at left tackle. And Illinois has added 2 defensive linemen, Anthony Johnson out of Youngstown State, Aneche Sledge out of Auburn. So a Power 5 transfer there. They're hoping for more. Kevin Wigginson going to announce his commitment today, and Brett Bielema not hiding it, that he's expecting good news this afternoon. So if you're able to add Wigginson and J.C. Davis on top of Anthony Johnson and Sledge there, that's addressing your biggest needs on the defensive line and offensive line. But Davis, especially, Joey, left tackles are hard to find. This guy's a proven one at the FBS level. He was a great one in the Mountain West. I think he'll be a good one in the Big Ten. This was a big get for Bart Miller and Barry Lunny Jr.
Yeah, they had to address – we like what they've done at guards. We're going to talk to A.J. Dennis, who we expect to be a guard. But tackles are hard. They're hard to recruit. They're hard to land. There's so much competition for tackles. So to go out – get the number 1 guy on your board, plug him in at left tackle for a year, and we can talk, Jeremy, about the trickle-down effect that we think that's going to have in the 2024 season. But, man, it's got to make Luke Altmaier, Barry Lunny, Bart Miller feel really good that left side where, come on, it's been good. Julian Pearl's going to get a chance to minimally be in a camp in the NFL, to be able to get another guy that you trust to put out there, to block that blind side of Luke Altmaier, to shore up a really big hole on the line, not have to rely on sophomore Brandon Henderson at left tackle. It's a big deal for Illinois. They did a really good job of closing this down. And to your point, that the list was extensive for programs that were interested in him. And Illinois did a really good job of getting in there, getting that closed down and addressing their second biggest need. You can say 1A, 1B if you want, because I thought both the offensive and defensive line needed a lot of work, and they're being aggressive in attacking that.
Yeah, so 6'5", 307 pounds, 2-year starter at New Mexico. If you like the PFF grade, 77.7 PFF grade, even if that's at the group of 5 level, Joey, that's a really high grade. Like if you're getting into the 80s, you're elite, right, against your competition. So that's a proven FBS left tackle, had 1,500 snaps at left tackle. That is really important experience. Illinois just didn't really have any other options that were experienced. Brandon Henderson, we thought could be the potential top option. you feel better about this. And this might allow, as you said, maybe Brandon Henderson's your right tackle. Maybe Brandon Henderson, competes with Zy Chrysler for the job, whatever it is. This just gives you a little bit more options. And then if you had Kevin Wigginton from Michigan State, who was a starter last year for a Big Ten team, guy with 2 years of eligibility, that interior competition gets better. Maybe allows Josh Geske to play right tackle. But most importantly, Brett Bielema told us today, we can't be thin again. We can't just be a 5 deep. And I think at times this year, Illinois felt 4 deep on the offensive line. I think they probably feel comfortable if they get Wigginton on top of J.C. Davis with 7-8 guys playing, with Brandon Henderson getting better, Josh Geske potentially getting better. They're hoping Hunter Whitenack and some of these guys take another step forward, but with Josh Kreutz and obviously Zy Chrysler pretty established here, that's starting to look like a deeper offensive line for sure. You got 2 really good ones to replace in Julian Pearl and Isaiah Adams, who's probably going to be a mid-round draft pick, but you feel a lot better about the offensive line potentially after day, and then adding A.J. Dennis and Zafir Stewart and Brandon Hansen for the future. This was a good day for Bart Miller.
It was a very good day for Bart Miller. And to your point, I and Brett Bielema's talked about exactly what you said. They didn't have a lot of depth last year that they felt comfortable with. I think they left Lawrence, Kansas kind of freaking out a little bit because with the plan at right tackle just didn't work out due to Zy Chrysler had some injuries. Obviously, he struggled. And they didn't have options. I don't think they at any point wanted to move Isaiah Adams out of left guard, but they had to out of necessity. So to be able to get those guys, and Brett Bielema said today, it's a big spring for some of those guys who have been in the system for a few years. Your Hunter Whitenecks, your Joey Oakleys, your Clayton Leonards, that first class, it was time to take a step. And that, when we say that, we don't mean take a step and knock, Zy Chrysler out of his spot, but we mean, hey, if someone goes down, we need to feel comfortable with you to put out there in a situation, whether it's 3 drives or 3 games or whatever the case may be. So that's what you're starting to see. The cupboard was empty a few years ago on the offensive line. So you're starting to see, in theory, and there still needs to be some steps this offseason, but you're starting to see some of that depth start to take shape. And they've had to go through the portal or junior college, whichever route to make that happen.
Yeah, and listen, I know there's some doubts after missing opportunities the first 3 years, right? Of 1 game away from a bowl game in 2 of the last 3 years, 1 game away from a Big Ten West championship last year. There's been some missed opportunities on the field, and Lovie Smith recruited some talent that Brett Bielema got a lot out of, some high-end talent that is going to be drafted very, very high. I think we've seen the issue, Joey, can be depth, like what they had to piecemeal at DB, what they had to piecemeal on the offensive line this past couple of years, and really looking at the defensive line group now, which is in part the staff's first couple of recruiting classes weren't that great, but you're starting to see, you hope, more depth when you stack top 50 classes. Yes, you'd like top 25 classes. For Illinois, that's probably not realistic to beat Clemson and all of these programs over and over again, Ohio State to come in state and take the best talent. But you're hoping that your depth becomes better and that you can handle the injuries. They were not able to handle injuries early on the offensive line. They were not able to handle late last 2 seasons on the defense or on the defensive backfield, right? Like the secondary really, really struggled with those. So that's what you're hoping is that depth takes over. And then you hope the talent you are getting, Caden Fagan becomes a star next year. Malik Elzy, can he become a huge impact player? And Pat Bryant, can he take another step? Can some of those guys take that next step, Gabe Backus, into being a bona fide Big Ten star as they get into their sophomore, junior years, 3 classes in with Brett Bielema? That's what you're hoping.
Yeah, and that's what you need, and that's kind of the point we talk about. You need time for these guys to develop, and you're starting to get to that time where it's okay. Like, are you ready to either be a contributor, to take a step into that starring role? And that's kind of how you try to it's how you try to build this momentum that you definitely sustained in 2022 and you feel like maybe wavered a little bit in 2023. You need those steps to replace the guys because you want to be an NFL factory, right? You want to be able to churn guys there, but you also want to be able to replace those guys. And that's where this program is at in a lot of key positions right now.
This class we'll talk a lot about some of the skill players. We're talking with 2 of them who are exciting: Tyshawn Griffin, the wide receiver out of Chicago, and quarterback Trey Petty. But a lot of added beef to this class and physicality. And let's talk a little bit about that. We're excited for our first guest of our live signing day show here on the Illini Inquirer podcast, Barry Lundy Jr. He's the Illini offensive coordinator. Barry, thanks for joining us. What is signing day like for you as you see all these guys officially become part of the family?
Well, I forgot to put my junior on my name here. So I hope everybody know it gets confused. It's not my dad here. So yeah, signing day, it's changing every year. Over the years I've coached in college, there used to be a little bit more, maybe uncertainty in times, like sitting around waiting for the faxes to come in. You worry about your fax machine not working right. And, so it's really transitioned to more of a kind of a focus of celebration, of what you have been able to collect from a commitment standpoint. Not as many surprises as there used to be, and I think that's a healthy thing for both parties. There's less uncertainty going into that night, signing date and the eve of signing date, and so all in all, it's a great day for us. I think we feel really good about what we're able to accomplish. I think, obviously, I heard Coach say in this press conference about just all the work that's gone into it, from all the people behind the scenes that just work tirelessly of bird dogging people for us and setting up visits and mail outs and all the things that go into recruiting. It's a big kind of accumulation of the effects of all that work, and we're proud of what we did today.
Well, can we ask you, Barry, let's start with the quarterback that you recruited. You go back to Starkville for another quarterback. Can you take us in about how you focused on Trey Petty as your prime target there, the pursuit of him and what he brings to the room?
Yeah, I mean, it was really kind of a cut and dry type evaluation. So I'm in Mississippi. I think this time last year in January, and going to see some 24 quarterbacks that I knew that kind of were on the radar, and quite frankly was not aware of Trey. And I reached out to Coach Jones, who's the head coach at Starkville High School, and said, "Hey, while I'm in the state, while I'm here, I'd love to be able to come over and meet you, just learn a little bit more about Luke." And at that point in time, he was like, "Yeah, that's great. And do you know about my guy?" And I was like, honestly, I can't remember the specifics of the conversation. I think I knew there was a good quarterback there. And I was like, "Coach, to be honest with you, I don't." And he said, "Well, he's going to be throwing when you're here. Let you watch him work out." He happened to be just throwing and catching there in the off-season workout. And I think you'll really like him, be interested in him. And sure enough, I watched him work out for 10 minutes. And I was like, "Man, this guy's really talented. He's exactly what we're looking for." The more I learned about him, the more I liked about him. The more I learned about him from Coach Jones, from the people in the community, even the Altmaier and their family had gone way back. Dr. Altmaier, Luke's dad, had done Trey's ACL repair surgery, I think, when he was in 8th grade. So there's a lot of strong ties there. And so that's kind of how it all went about. And, we made once Coach Bielema saw him, and in relation to the other quarterbacks we were evaluating, Coach sent me a text message. I was sitting at my desk like I am today. He's in his office, and he sent me a text. He goes, "Trey Petty all day long, please," And so we went and made a strong push for him, got him here on an official visit in a quick fashion, and he reciprocated our interest. And, the rest, they say, is kind of recruiting history.
Barry, I know Brett talked today in his press conference about some of the intangibles, the competitiveness that Trey brings to the table. How did you observe that? I mean, because obviously you can see probably some on film, but how did you kind of become aware that was within his makeup?
Yeah, I mean, watching him in practice, it's kind of unique. I got a chance to watch him play twice in person this year. Usually you don't hardly ever, usually you get a chance to see a signee or a commitment one time. And because of the way it worked out and him still playing in December, I got a chance to watch him play in the state championship game as well. And so I saw that, kind of come to fruition about the words that the adjectives that his coaching staff and people around him had used to describe his competitive nature. I saw it come to life in both of those environments. And just this time we spent talking to him on the phone, whether he's playing video games or playing ping pong, you can just see a guy that just really likes to compete and loves ball.
And then obviously we saw him use his legs, Barry, to make some plays this season as a senior. We saw Luke do that. How much of an emphasis is that mobility and what you guys are looking for at a quarterback position?
Well, I don't know if it's like it's not the first thing that we're looking for. I think the first thing, obviously the first thing you're looking for is somebody that can deliver the ball consistently with accuracy, velocity, the trajectory that's required, that's got poise and leadership. And then when you start, getting a lump of guys together that maybe say got 20 prospects, and if 10 of them may be a little bit more mobile than the other 10, then I think that's certainly kind of a way we gravitate. But, to be honest with you, like, that's not at a premium for us, as much as it is maybe a luxury. And you even saw the way we played the last few weeks when John took over. Like John's not a super mobile guy, and I thought played really well within our offensive system. So, all the quarterbacks, they come in all different shapes and sizes and skill sets. And obviously we do like the fact that Trey is a very good runner. He's a very physical runner. I think that's a positive thing for us in getting a prospect, but it's not something that we absolutely have to have in order to play in the system.
Barry, this is a guy who learned from Luke as a freshman, was his backup, and obviously has a relationship there. Does that familiarity help as he comes in January, tries to learn this? Like, does that make an impact? How much does that help?
Yeah, it had no bearing on us, deciding to go after him.
Sure.
But the dynamics of the quarterback room are really important. And because you want competition, you want them all to be fighting and scratching and clawing to be the guy, but you also need them to have some camaraderie and some chemistry and support for each other. And we've been very fortunate since I've been here. That's been the case. And so obviously with their history together, and they have a very good relationship, a very mutual relationship that's based on mutual respect and trust. I think that'll only help maybe expedite that process for us in that room, and will keep us going smoothly in that regard.
I saw your wide receivers coach tweeting out facts over fiction, George McDonald, today, and you guys threw the ball really well, especially towards the end of the year. Casey Washington, the way he ended the year, Isaiah Williams was dominant. How much does that help in your pitch to Tyshawn, Mario Sanders, Carlos Orr, and how much do you think you showed to recruits about Brett Bielema's team can pass too?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mario happened to be on his official visit the week that I think we threw for 500 something yards, so he probably thought, anybody in their right mind that day would have thought this is an offense that I want to play in from a receiving standpoint. And some of the production offensively in the passing game was a result of us being behind at times and being a 2-minute, but some of it was, a lot of it was just the consistency that our receivers played with. And I think George has got a really great ability to get those guys to play within the system and maximize their talents. And so obviously all three of those guys, Tyshawn, Carlos, and Rio, we feel really good about. And, we want to be a balanced offense here at Illinois. We got to run the ball better than what we did last year, and that's the bottom line. But we want to continue to have our edge and ability to throw the ball, move the ball via the passing game, strike quickly. But we've got to we've got to run the ball better. But certainly that's something that we're proud of. The way that we did throw and catch this year, especially down the stretch, was something that was really good. And we don't, back down from that. And obviously that, our recruiting department and graphics department put some stuff together that, that really just from a national scale was really a really solid performance from our receivers and quarterbacks and tight ends and O-line and everybody that goes with the passing game. But so I think, those guys should be excited about what we're trying to do there in that realm.
Well, Barry, you guys also added some offensive linemen, some really, really talented offensive linemen. Let's start with AJ Dennis. What stood out about him to you, and just kind of, can you walk us through the process from your vantage point of being able to revisit that recruitment and ultimately get him signed?
Well, obviously Coach B and Bart were very vested in that and all of our support. When we recruit a guy here, it's not just one person. It's a tag team event. I mean, Coach does an unbelievable job Coach Bielema gets an unbelievable job of developing relationships with the families and the people that matter. Coach is very strategic about it. It's always been really good, really gifted in that regard. But, like when you deal with the old linemen, you're dealing, Tyler King's involved in that as a graduate assistant, Adam Kleffner, who, is involved in that. And so there's all these layers of recruitment, and some, sometimes one key figure in our building is a little bit more strongly involved than others. But at the end of the day, it's kind of a group effect. We were thrilled to have AJ come back and visit us, and when he opened it back up, I mean, this is a guy who plays the game the right way, physical. I think he's very gifted physically, excited to have him. I think he's one of those guys that will be, will be on a fast track to be able to help us in our 2 deep in a hurry.
I know we've talked a lot about the guys that you signed today, but really quickly, though, you talked about Brett Bielema and his recruiting approach. And we hear that a lot when we talk to recruits that he's involved. So what stands out about him, and whether it be how hands-on he is or his messaging that makes him as effective as he is?
Well, just one thing I've seen about him is when he gets his sights set on one, he's a bulldog, and that's what you have to be in recruiting. I mean, you have to be a bulldog, and you just got to keep staying in there and being aggressive, and always hunting and pecking for the angle, and not in a used car salesman type way, but just like, okay, what are because each family and each recruit you deal with, their sticking points and the things that are the hot buttons for them are different and unique to each family and recruit. And so it requires some diligence there to dig deep and to go beyond the surface. And coach just has a really good ability to do that. And I think it's really impressive. All the things that he manages as a head coach, for him the time and effort and energy he puts into getting to know these young men and their families is really something that makes us go from a recruiting standpoint.
Barry, how do you feel like with AJ, Zafir, Brandon, last year's class, the class before that? You've had 3 recruiting classes of trying to build up that offensive line, which I know you want to be part of your identity and running the football and protecting your quarterback. How do you feel you guys are building up the trenches there on offense?
Yeah, I mean, you look at our sheet, and we talk about our roster a lot and the depth and the way the classes are stacked, and guards and tackles and centers, and it's a process. I mean, it's a challenge, because that's the one spot on offense that requires the most volume, of prospects and recruits and signees and non-scholarship players. I mean, you've got, because you really want to carry about, 18 linemen that for your season, to be healthy. And that's always a challenge. And so, yeah, I think we're making strides. I mean, obviously adding 3 quality, high school players like we just did today. Along with, obviously, you guys know that we're involved in the portal, and we'll always be involved in that, how to mix and match that. I think that was a huge step in the right direction for us. And, getting guys healthy is a big part of that as well. And so I think today was a strong step forward in handling our depth and quality of depth there at the O-line spot.
Your running back room has gotten so big the last couple of years, but how does Khalil Valentine complement that? What's he bring?
Yeah, I think he was the perfect complement to what our room is and looks like. And we weren't necessarily, I think Thad was pretty strategic about how he zeroed in on and what he zeroed in on in that regard. We wanted somebody that could provide some things out of the backfield that was electric with the ball in their hand. And I think we found that perfect fit in Khalil, and been a real pleasure to get to know him in recruiting and his family. I think he's going to be a great asset to our running back room.
You guys do a lot of 8-man football recruiting in your past, Barry?
Ironically enough, the very first quarterback I ever signed at Tulsa was the 8-man Oklahoma Player of the Year. His name was James Killian. And we used to have a lot of fun with him when he threw interceptions early on. I was like, all right, let's count. Okay, here's number 9, here's number 10. This was number 11 that got you, James. And actually, at that position, that was something we were really concerned about way back then, about the transition. But it took him about a year, but he transitioned greatly at Tulsa. Ended up being a really good player at Tulsa. Actually got a cup of coffee in the NFL. And so that was my first experience about seeing it and watching. And obviously, when you transition, and that was your segue to talk about Tanner, obviously, I think that's a much easier transition for a player that's not a quarterback, and I think he's got a great skill set. He's athletic. He's very intelligent, plays both sides of the ball. The field will be a little bit wider for him. There'll be a few more guys out there, but at the end of the day, it'll be about defeating that one-on-one matchup, whether it's a defensive end, a linebacker, a safety, and he's got plenty of experience on that, even though it's been 8-man football.
Yeah, you've got a background, Barry, as a tight end coach. So what does he do that you like, that appeals to you?
Well, I think he's just well-rounded. Tight ends, they really come in all different shapes and sizes. I mean, they just really do, different skill sets. I think it's rare to find a guy that you could say come out of high school that you can say, all right, this guy can get in here in the C gap, and then he can also release and defeat a one-on-one coverage versus a safety or a linebacker. And so what you have to do is you have to take guys that may be really good in the C gap early on, or maybe a guy that's really good on the second level defeating safeties or linebackers. And then you work on the skill set in between and the time as they develop to mitigate their weaknesses in that regard. And that's okay. That's the way the tight end world works. And then every once in a while, in a blue moon, you find a guy that can handle both at an early age. And we certainly think Tanner has the physical capabilities to be able to handle both of those responsibilities at an early age. Does that mean he's going to come in day one and be the starter? No, it's not. He's going to have to develop and work. But I think there's a lot of promise there with what we see on him from film, his athletic ability, his body control, his toughness, his grit, his intelligence. He's got all the earmarkings of a guy that can be able to come in and be an every down tight end for us.
Barry, it was a very eventful year one with Luke Altmaier. The lows at times, really great highs, and then obviously John Paddock. That's something that just doesn't happen all that often, and he seemed to handle it well. John said he handled it well. You did too. What is year two like with you two, and what's the next step with your partnership and him taking control of this offense?
Yeah, it's going to be a huge spring for us in the quarterback room, not just with Luke, but with Donovan and Cal and Trey coming in to compete, and Kirkland, and so it's going to be another phase of what you want it to be is competition, development. But to answer your direct question, it's not about the X's and O's. I mean, there's going to be some tweaks. There's going to be some things we do differently. There's going to be some different approaches. Our team will be different. Our personnel will be different on offense than what it was last season. So there's always going to be some things that we have to look introspectively to see what can we do different or better to enhance what we're doing schematically. But for Luke in particular, it's going to be about, leadership, command of the offense, consistency, those are just some of the things that jump off the top of my head, because he's got plenty of skill set physically and has already shown that. And he's got leadership. I don't want to paint a picture like he doesn't. I mean, but there's some areas that we've got to, I think, grow his confidence in, and getting the ball out quicker, to help to be more decisive, and I think really at the end of the day, when you peel it back for him, the spring will be about being more assertive and being more decisive. And if we can get him to do those things just incrementally a little bit, I think you got a guy that can play a really high level for us.
Is that typical for year two, or can you not take that for granted that those steps are going to happen when you're year two?
I think it should be typical, but certainly nothing we're going to take for granted. And I know Luke is really hungry to come back, and I think it was hard on him. I know it was hard on him to feel like he was kind of hitting his stride as a player, and then it kind of was taken away from him. And but I also know he understood the circumstance. I mean, really, in hindsight, we had no choice. I mean, it was just one of those situations where it was just like Coach B and I just looked at each other, and Coach yeah, I mean, this is what we got to do. We got to go John again. After Luke was out against Indiana as well, he played. You had to. And that didn't make it easy. It didn't make it easy for Luke, but I think it afforded him an opportunity to kind of sit back and be reflective of some of the things that John did great to help bolster our offense to a large degree. And so I'm really excited to work with Luke this spring. I think he's really anxious to get back in the saddle and to grow and to take the things he learned from in the fall and gain the confidence that he did. I think that's a big thing for us. I want to see him like, dude, when you play and you're capable. When you play like you're capable of, you're really, really good. And I'm excited about that.
Barry, a couple more for you. We'll get you out of here, and we appreciate your time. Isaiah Williams declares for the draft. Casey Washington out of eligibility. What's key for some of those younger receivers to step into a bigger role this season?
Well, I think the first thing is there's a natural progression of development there that they're on track to, all those guys. I think that's the first thing. I think George does a great job of development. That's another thing. And then I think maybe the third thing, and a big part of it is they had a great opportunity to sit back and watch these guys go to work every day and practice. I mean, there's nobody that had better practice habits on our team than Casey Washington. I mean, every day, every play, since the moment I've been here, and quite frankly, he was long overdue for the type of day that he had in his last game. I really thought he would have more of those type of days, not necessarily 200 yards. Those are pretty rare. To have a 200-yard receiving day or whatever, but just I thought he would have more 100-yard days, and just, for whatever reason, it didn't unveil itself. But the way he prepared and practiced is he's like the model for that. So hopefully those guys were able to see that. Guy like Malik and Ashton and Hank's got really good practice habits, and Canary, and I'm probably leaving off a guy or two, Alex Kapka Jones, to be able to use those guys as a great reference point of, okay, this is how you're supposed to practice. This is how you're supposed to prepare. This is how you're supposed to play without the ball. So I think they've got great examples in front of them. So all those three things you got a natural progression, you got a position coach that's great at getting development, and you had a bunch of guys that showed them the way last year. So I'm very confident in the steps those guys are going to take.
All right, my last one. I'm going to go a little off the radar for you because I'm fascinated by him. Art Sikowski. I mean, it seems like he is hitting the ground running at this coaching thing. What would you observe about him year one as Coach Art?
Well, Coach Art, so like I tell him, I got a wonderful wife at home, and Janelle, who's obviously, she keeps me on track. When I walk in the door, she's like, all right, the boys have practice. You got to, this, and that. And so she's obviously fantastic at that. When I walk in the office, I got my office wife and Art, and he's like, Coach, you got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. We got to call this guy today. Like, we got to get this guy on the phone. And like, he is just a bulldog. And he's really figured out, how to make a niche for himself. And he's involved in all facets of our recruiting. He's been a really integral part of our quarterback development too. It's been really special for me. I've had the ability to tell him this, but it's very unique. I've never gone from having a guy in my room that I coached that transitioned within, basically overnight, walked out the door, came right back in the door, and now all of a sudden was my assistant, was a part of our staff that we allowed so much access to and so much trust to. And that's because he had earned that trust. Trust is really truth over time. And Art has continued to show us the truth of who he is on a daily basis for now going on year 3. And so the more trust and the more responsibility you get. So we give him a lot of responsibility. He's a great asset to our program. He's going to be an all-star in this business. I really believe that. He's very passionate. And you can hear him coming from a mile down the road recruiting, he's got a really loud volume in recruiting and on the field. And I love him. We're thankful that he's a part of, and we've got a lot of support coaches. Every one of us have a support coach. Vince Jeffries is with, George, and Danny Cameron, and works with Thad, and go on and on down the line, and on both sides of the ball that are just, it takes a village, man. I mean, it takes a village to coach and recruit nonstop. And we've got a great support staff, and Art is among those guys. But for me in particular, I'm thankful that I've got such a tedious, intentional work wife that keeps me lined up,
Well, Barry Lundy Jr., hey, we appreciate the time and insight as always. Get some downtime, would you? And happy holidays to you and your family.
Happy holidays to you all as well. You guys, appreciate you having me on your little fancy here. What's this platform?
It's YouTube, live podcast, StreamYard.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty seamless. I was hunting and pecking my how to type in the address. I got it. I like the last part of it. I think it said QB5. That kind of struck a nerve with me. So appreciate the work you guys do, and happy holidays to you all as well.
Thanks, Barry. Great stuff from Barry Lundy. Let's just go right into it, Joey. Let's get the defensive side of the ball. Defensive coordinator Aaron Henry joining us now. Aaron, happy holidays, but more importantly, happy signing day, which is a holiday for you guys.
First and foremost, how are you guys doing? Thank you so much, man. I'm thrilled, excited about obviously signing day. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, what is this like for you guys as a defensive staff? You've had a couple of JUCOs who can make an immediate impact. Obviously, you guys have been busy in the transfer portal, but you've been working for a long time to put this high school class together too. So, just what is this day like for you guys as a staff?
Yeah, it's a day of excitement. It's a day of us rejoicing, right? Like, you spend all year recruiting a lot of these young men, and you finally get to the point to where you can sign them, right? We didn't have no surprises, thank God. But like you spend a year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes even longer than that, recruiting these young men, and you finally get them to the day to where you can sign them, and it's great for our program. I think every year our goal is to level up and bring good players into this program, right? Because oftentimes, right, we know if we can get good players in this program, we know we can develop them with our system in place. Both off the field and on the field to help us have success in the long run. So this day is an awesome day for us, but it's only the beginning, right? It's only the beginning of a new journey for a lot of these young men. It's only the beginning of the new year for us, going into the new year and hopefully going into the new season for us, that we can have success with these young men. And it's going to be a new cycle here next year, right? Like, we about to turn this thing around in January and start working on, we're going to finish off this class, but start working on the class ahead. And so it's truly never ending.
Well, Aaron, before we talk about the back end, which obviously everyone knows is your specialty, but you got to replenish a lot of talent up front. Yeah. And I know these guys take time to develop, but getting Angelo McCollum, Demetrius John, Eddie Turk, what does that group bring to you long-term on the defensive front?
Well, first and foremost, it's always vital, right, in a conference like this, to make sure you're really, really good up front, right? We can have all the players in the world on the back end, but we have to be sound. We got to be really, really talented up front. And I feel like we went and got a lot of those guys, man. Hats off to Coach Jamison. He's a beast in recruit. I mean, for him to eval some of the guys as early as he did and get on them as early as he did, right? And then us collectively going out to get these guys, like, that's just a testament to just like how we recruit, right? We want to find guys that we can develop, right? We want to find guys that could obviously be assets to our program. And it truly does start up front, man. And I believe we got some war daddies up front. Angelo, right? Demetrius, right? Eddie. You talk about Joe Barner, Josiah Knight. I mean, right. And then we're not even talking about the added element of Daniel Brown in the mix. I mean, we got some very talented dudes in that front seven core group of guys that I'm really, really excited about. Obviously, gives us some weapons defensively, and we're going to allow those guys to hunt up front.
Aaron, last year you guys had a sell of a top 5 draft pick. You're going to have, I would have to imagine, another first-round draft pick this coming April. What does that allow you guys to do on the recruiting trail when you're looking to replace a Johnny Newton and a Keith Randolph, and you have those proven success points to sell?
Well, I think from our perspective, right, we're always going to sell development. Like, we're always going to sell that. We're not a one-hit wonder program. I do think that we can have one-hit wonders, right, within the transfer portal that we can help develop, over the course of that 8 to 10 month window. But you talk about a guy like Devin Witherspoon, you talk about a guy like Johnny Newton, those guys were in our program for 2 and 3+ years, right? And so they were able to be with Coach Tank for multiple off seasons. They were able to learn our scheme for multiple years, right, and the off season. And so when you see that, right, that should just tell you we're gonna always hang our hat on developing players. And I'm not just talking about from a weight room standpoint, right? Like, because you can have a young man who's a war daddy in the weight room and some isn't clicking for him academically, that's affecting them on the field, And so the route that we've taken to try to help these young men in every compartment of their lives to allow them to be really, really good football players on the field, I think that's just a testament to how Coach B kind of runs his program. Like we have somebody in every segment of their lives that are touching on them, what I'm saying, in terms of developing them as young men that are going to allow them to be successful. And I really believe that we kind of have the key to that code a little bit, right? You obviously saw a top 5 draft pick. Hopefully Johnny's a top 10 draft pick, right? And hopefully we kind of can continue that trend, but it only starts with bringing in good players, right? Like you got to have clay, right, or a certain amount of clay to kind of sculpt something into what you want it to be, right? We can't start with nothing and try to create something that's special. And I truly believe we got some clay with a lot of these young men that we end up bringing in that are going to be really talented for us in the future.
I know you touched on him, but I want to ask about Daniel Brown because he seems like a guy who could make a pretty quick impact for you guys. What's he bringing? What were your first impressions, Aaron, when you saw this guy, whether it was in person or on film, and just kind of what he brought to the table?
So I'm always a proponent of seeing young men live, right? You watch him on film, it was clear that he was talented, right? But I had a chance to see him live. They actually played East Mississippi, right? I think it was the game right before the national championship game, junior college national championship game. And the way he was rushing off the edge, man, like it was something special. Like he put his hand, he put his hand in the dirt. He was able to get off the edge. He was physical at the point of attack. He played with great extension. All those small tools and things that you look for, right, in a player, it showed up, right? I happened to be on the field, and like for me, when I'm recruiting a player, the sign of a really good player or alpha, in my opinion, I like to kind of go like be near the bench, right? Just to see how he interacts with his teammates, right? They weren't always up. Sometimes they were down, just to see what kind of morale he had and was he truly a leader? And he checked every last one of those boxes. And so to see him on the field and then kind of circle around during the course of the game and kind of see him interact with his teammates and holding guys accountable, like that's what you want. You know, he has that. It was kind of like an alpha bravado and mentality, you know, like he had a never quit mentality. He was trying to encourage his teammates, you know, and it was in a different manner, which you love because obviously they know him. But for me, that spoke volumes because that let me know that this young man is truly elite. He not only is he a good football player, right, but he's truly a special leader. And anytime you can get a really good football player with a special leader, I think you got something really, really special in that young man that can obviously help propel your program.
Aaron, you've known the Canada family for a little bit, offering, his brother Channing last year, but you had Chase Canada this time around. Obviously, when you added JUCO, you'd like him to make an immediate impact. What do you see from him of how he can fit and impact your defense right away?
Yeah, the young man he has so much position flex, man. Like, obviously, we're going to start him off outside. I think he can easily play inside. So our corners, like I like our corners to be able to play nickel and outside. And so we're going to start him off there and kind of see where it goes because obviously you need guys that can cover on the outside that are super important. But he has that bravado, he has that swag. He's a super confident young man, right? He didn't lack nothing in the confidence department. He was a qualifier coming out of high school, you know, and he ended up going to Trinity Valley to kind of elevate and help his recruiting. And it worked out for him, you know. It's funny how this whole process works, right? Had a chance to recruit his brother, and I knew about Chase while I was recruiting his brother, right? Dad's no, man. Dad was trying to sell me on Chase coming out of high school, right? We had some guys that we had already taken, right? We were obviously looking for an older guy because Spoon and Quan and Cindy, all those guys were leaving. And we end up obviously losing out on his brother, and Chase ends up going to junior college. He ends up working out for us. But this young man is so talented. He's physical. He wants to bite every chance that he gets, right? And trying to make sure that he hits people and get his face on a football. He is looking for contact. He's a very, very intelligent, cerebral football player. You know, I had a chance to be in a meeting room with him, and I know Coach kind of spoke to this earlier, but like just you can tell a young man who is so far advanced in how he communicates and how he understands the game by just simply watching tape with him. You know, when he was up here on his official visit, just watching tape with him, I'm like, oh my, like this young man is highly just from a mental capacity, he's highly intelligent. You know, for a corner to communicate like that to me and see things before they happen. It was so impressive, you know. When we were watching his tape, we were watching some of our tape as well, and it was really cool to kind of see that, you know, because obviously I had a chance to recruit his brother on the front end, but I ended up telling the parents, you know, Coach Finellis is obviously a better recruiter than me because they ended up getting the brother and I didn't, right? So, but it's been a really cool process. That's why this whole thing about recruiting, man. You never know like how it's going to come full circle, and you try to develop these relationships. I will say this, having a prior relationship with his family, I do think it helped us, you know, and obviously the way our DBs play and having a need for a really talented guy on the back end, I think that was beneficial as well. And we were so freaking happy that we signed him. You know, we was on freaking FaceTime with him every day, make sure nobody didn't steal him. I mean, like, dude, it's when you get into the wee hours of signing day. I mean, you're pulling out every stop to try to land these dudes, man. FaceTiming them, texting. I mean, everything, right? Just to try to make sure that you get them in the boat. And I'm really happy that we landed him, and I know he's really excited as well.
Well, I know that was a Big Ten recruiting win in the secondary. You got two other ones, Vernon Woodward, one of my favorite guys to watch on film. I watched it and I was like, oh, that's an Illinois DB. He's feisty. Amar Reynolds, same thing, out of Vero Beach. Obviously, Vernon getting here, big flip for you guys from your alma mater there, Aaron. What do those guys bring to your group long term?
Well, I think, you know, when you talk about creating a secondary and you talk about guys who can help your secondary. I think the first thing that we look for on the back end is, can they play man-to-man, right? Like, it's no secret that we want to be able to play man-to-man. Obviously, there's elements of zone to it, but I think just DBs overall, we want to be able to line up and play man-to-man on people, right? So do they check that box? Vernon, Amar, freaking Chase, all those cats check that box. They can clearly play man-to-man, right? Then you look for the physicality standpoint, right? Are they physical? Will they hit you? Okay. And it's clear all those cats, they don't mind putting their face on you, right? I do think that there's a developmental aspect of getting in the weight room. I think Vernon's pretty solid. Amar, I think he's going to be a guy when he gets with Coach Tank. I mean, his potential is literally through the roof, right? Chase is pretty developed in that category, but he'll get better at it. And then the third thing is their ball skills. Do they have ball skills, right? Can they turn into the wide receiver when the ball's in the air, or do they panic when the ball's in the air? And all those cats, man, innately, they have natural ball skills. And I think it's very, very encouraging for us as coaches when we see that and we're evaluating it, right? Like, those are three of the things that we look for when we're looking for a DB that can play in his secondary, because you know you're going to get targeted, right? You know you're going to be put in a one-on-one, right, to be targeted and to tackle. And can you do it? And so to land Vernon, obviously, to have two DB coaches that played at the University of Wisconsin and kind of get them from that placement, obviously that was a win for us. But more importantly, I think what the upside that we saw in Vernon is his skill set. Like, he's long, he's rangy. I think he has position flex as well. He's obviously going to start outside, but he's physical, right? He has tremendous ball skills. His length, right? A lot of people talk about length. When you have that kind of length, right? I mean, your ceiling is so, and you have no ceiling, right? When you got that kind of length and you want to hit people. And so I do think he's very fitting for the Big Ten Conference, you know, because people will try to tackle and put him in one-on-ones to tackle. And so I think he has the makeup and what we look for in a real defensive back to play here. Fast forward to Amar, right? He is, every time that cat touches the ball, he has the ability to take it to the house. Like, he has supreme ball skills, but not only that, his return ability after he catches the ball is something that's uncanny, man. Like, it's really, really special for a young man like that. And he's not trying to go down when he catches it, right? He's trying to take it to the house. And so anytime you have a young man like that, when you're taking interceptions, all right, and turning them into touchdowns, that's always a benefit to the secondary.
Aaron, I'm not asking you to tell on the guy, but I like to imagine Andy Booth speeding to Willard to hop a flight to Utah to go see Easton Baker. I'm just going to assume I'm right on that. But you talk about hitting. Easton's highlight tape is pretty electric. What'd you think when you first saw that tape of him kind of putting those hits down?
So I can remember it like it was yesterday, right? Like, we had a meeting, and he says, "Man, I want a freaking 6'3" linebacker. You know, I want this, I want that. He needs to have these measurables." And we're all like, okay, yeah, right. We all want a 6'3" linebacker, right? Like, that's great. He comes in, no lie, 2 minutes later, he comes in. He says, "Bro," you know, Andy from California. He says, "Bro, I found this linebacker, man. Found this linebacker." He was like, "He's not 6'3" though. He's not 6'3". I'm like, "You just said that you wanted a 6'3" linebacker." Man, we put on this kid's tape, and it was something out of a horror. He was hitting everything that moved, dude. Like I'm like, this is what you call a football player, right? If you were to create a player from the beginning, right, and you wanted to create a football player, you want him to look just like Easton Baker. Like all the attributes and like all that goes out the window. This dude will hit you. He's physical, right? He has great football IQ. He is the definition of a football player, right? And he could have been in Africa, as far as I'm concerned. We would have sent somebody over there to go and get him. He happened to be in Utah, right? And there was a little traveling to get there, but he is that special of a player, right? When you hit play on the tape, you can't just walk away from that. It's like, well, he's a little further than what we typically recruit out of, or our recruiting blueprint. You're like, no, like, how can we get this kid here? Let's get on the phone with him. Once we got on the phone with him, that relationship was built. Andy does a tremendous job, right? Getting on the phone with these dudes and recruiting them. And once Andy sinks his teeth into you, man, it's a wrap. And so we're really, really excited about Easton. Obviously, he's going to play linebacker for us, and just his skill set, man. Like, he. The first thing I thought about when I was watching him, right? The first thing I thought about was a guy by the name of Chris Borland, right? I played with Chris at Wisconsin. That was the first thing because he was so violent, right? He didn't have all the 6'3" measurables, but he checked every box in terms of physicality, right? In terms of high football IQ, in terms of want to, like he had all of those those intangibles, and you love that about him. Then when you met the kid in person, right, and you seen how serious he was and how he interacted, it was like, okay, this is our kind of guy, right? I happen to be around Coach for a long time. I know what our kind of guys look like. That is our kind of guy, and I'm just excited that he's on our side.
Aaron, I want to go back to the secondary real quick. You got a lot of young guys this past season get a lot of really important snaps for you. What's important for them this offseason to build on that experience, good and bad, and take it into next year?
Yeah, obviously, when you have an influx of young guys playing, right, it's always frustrating in that moment and in that time. But experience is vital, right? I can remember Dave Dorn once telling me experience is the best teacher, right? He pulled me aside. I had some young guys when I was at NC State. He pulled me aside and he was like, listen, the experience for these guys in the next 2 to 3 years is going to be vital for them, right? It's going to be painful now, but it's going to be vital moving forward. And I think for us, right, moving forward, a lot of those guys had situations they can learn from, they can grow in, right? And this offseason is going to be massive because now they've seen or they've tasted what it's like to be in a Big Ten game, right? To be close in the Big Ten game and lose it, right? To be close in the Big Ten game and win it, right? You had a taste of what it's like. So now we have to push ourselves, right? We got to push ourselves in the offseason, in the weight room. We got to push ourselves as a team and as a family, as a culture, right, to take that next step. You know, and I had, it's funny you say that because I try to make it my business, right? I know we're out recruiting, but I FaceTime every week. I FaceTime all my guys. I try to hit the whole defense, right? Just get on FaceTime with them and talk to them, see their face, see how they're doing, see how their family's doing, right? Just have a conversation with them, man. 10 minutes for most of them, right? And all of them are hungry and eager to get back, right? All of them know we left a lot on the table. And so I think anytime you have young men like that in your program, like that's what you want. Right, none of them are satisfied. Right, all of them want to be better, and obviously this offseason we obviously turning it up a notch. We're clear on a lot of things. Right, there's a lot of things that obviously we got to get corrected, but understand like you've been put in that fire in that situation. You know what it's like now, so let's learn from it. Let's learn from it, right? And that starts as soon as you get back, and we start that 8-week lifting cycle. All right, with Coach Tank in the weight room, right? And then it parlays in the academics and it moves on to spring ball. And so I think them being with Tank to start us off is going to catapult us in the spring ball. And I'm just looking forward to this next group of guys and growing and developing, learning with them.
Aaron, every year's a learning experience. You've talked about how first year's defense coordinator was a learning experience, but Brett made a comment after Northwestern that kind of stuck with me. And he said, this is year 3 of this defense. And I think you mentioned this during the year too, about how teams have scouted you and know how to attack you. So how do you counter that now that teams have countered you? Like going into your second year as play caller, schemer, all of that. What's the process now for you guys as a staff?
Well, I think you have to be able to tweak things on every front end and back end, right? Like having ways to, if guys are struggling playing man to man, having ways to play zone, right, and match zones, having ways, right, if a guy is struggling in coverage and they're going to one primary receiver, having ways to roll the coverage, right, which is very, very simple in our defense, right? So taking that next step, right, obviously I've been doing a ton of off-season studies, right, to just try to, because I think in a perfect world, yes, I want to play man-to-man every down, but in reality, right, if our guys can't or if they're struggling to, I have to find ways to alleviate them and give them some help, right? And that's on all fronts, right? Like on top of that, being able to move the front and isolate some guys, right? Obviously, we're going to miss Johnny up front, we're going to miss Keith up front, but we're bringing an influx of guys in here that I think can win one-on-one battles up front. Obviously, Seth Coleman, right, is another key player for us. And so growing and learning in that process, right, we'll be different than we were last year. I promise you that, right? You know why? Because we got to be, right? Illinois wasn't the only group of guys that Purdue struggled as well, right? Because
I was going to mention that, yeah.
we run the same defense and teams knew how to attack it, and so there's things there that you love from it and you learn from and grow from, but there's also things that you got to take away from that and be like, okay, well, why did they do this? They did it for a very specific reason, to try to isolate somebody or get a one-on-one. So what are counters to it, and how can I have answers faster during the course of the game? And so there's been a very deep dive. I've watched every game at least twice, right? A deep dive into how teams were attacking us, and very specifically where they were going, right? And I can tell you this, I can tell you some important pieces in our defense. Our corners are very important pieces in our defense. Very important pieces in our defense. Our boundary safety, right? Where Matt Bailey would have been, where Nicario Harper was, right? Where Clayton was. Those are very important pieces in our defense. Our interior D-line are very important pieces to our defense. Okay. And so we have to make sure we got the right players in the right position, right, at those very important pieces. All pieces are important, but those positions specifically, teams have tried to attack over the course of the last 3 years. And we got to be able to put players in position to be successful and have answers for those moving forward. Right. And so Coach Henry gonna get it right. I promise you that. I'm with a defensive minded head coach, right? And we're really, really excited about us moving forward, because I think that we know that there are some things that we can alter in the front structure we show, right? And not just sitting in one front so teams tee off on us, but being able to have answers more so for our guys in the back end so that we can relieve some of them.
Well, Aaron Henry, Illini defense coordinator, thanks for the time, insight, sharing it with the fans who are watching this. We appreciate you, and get some days off and spend some time with those beautiful young babies. All right.
Listen, thank you guys so much. I wish I knew what off was. I will. I'm really, really excited about spending some time with them, man. I just really appreciate you guys and all the things you kind of do for Illinois football, right? Kind of showcasing us to the world. I know we got a lot of fans out there, right? I know this year didn't go how we wanted it to go, but I promise you this, right? Like during the course to climb that mountain, right? Sometimes you hit, you kind of hit a wall a little bit, but as long as you keep going, right, I think the journey to the top will be a lot sweeter, right, going through some turmoil when you do face it. And so I know we face a little bit of turmoil this year, but I can guarantee you that we will be a lot better from a defensive standpoint in 2024, and we're looking forward to it. Appreciate you guys, man.
Thanks, Aaron. Happy holidays.
Absolutely. Happy holidays.
Great stuff. Great stuff from Barry and Aaron. Thanks to both those guys for joining us. But we're also excited to get some of these Illini signees. And let's get the big guy on. AJ Dennis out of Michigan. Not only the highest ranked commit in this class for Illinois, but AJ, you're the first one to get your NLI in. Were you sitting there at the phone? Like, how excited were you this morning?
No, we were pumped. I had both my parents sit next to me. We were waiting for that time to hit 7:01 to start the process. I think it was submitted by 7:03. I think my dad, it might have been the longest 3 minutes waiting to hear it got through the clearinghouse that he's ever had. So no, it was definitely awesome getting it done, and talking to Coach B and Coach Miller this morning, and hearing about how excited they are, and how mutual it is that we're both ready to step into this next journey.
Well, AJ, obviously, this was a different process for you. You had to go through this multiple times when you probably didn't want to, but you end up at a place that you seem to really love. I mean, you have Penn State, Clemson, so many great Big Ten options as well. Tell people, why was Illinois? At the end of the day, after all that you had been through, why was Illinois the place for you?
Yeah, when it comes down to it, it's all about relationships. NIL is going to be here, there. I mean, you're going to have all those different big-time logos. Right, not saying Illinois is not, but at the end of the day, it's relationships. And the first Power 5 school to offer me, I've had conversations all the time. Coach Miller, Coach B would hit us up all the time, and it wasn't just me; it was my family members as well. So, when you look at the big picture of things, great facilities, all the bells and whistles everywhere else. It comes down to the people that are inside those facilities. I feel that Illinois is the best in the country. So, and with Coach B's track record, with his offensive lineman, I really don't see how you can say no to that.
AJ, talk to us a little bit about your relationship with Bart Miller, and just specifically, when did you know that you guys were as tight as you were? Like, how long did it take to really solidify that to where it is now?
I'll definitely say it started, last January. Last December, they offered in November of it's my junior year, so 22. It kind of blossomed. So I was between Michigan State and Illinois, and then with everything that happened at Michigan State, first coach I called was Coach Miller. He kind of said, "All right, let's slow this down. Let's think this through. Let's see what happens, and then, we'll go from there." And it just rehatched that relationship that we had. We have a lot of similarities. We both love hunting. We both love being outdoors. Spending time with family. So I think a lot of it was okay. We're going to talk about football. We're going to talk about the X's and O's, different sets, but we're going to talk about stuff outside of football. And I think that's what Coach Miller really brings to the table is, yeah, football's huge. It's important. It's the reason you're going to school, but that's not all who you are.
Yeah, I know when you came to visit, I think after your decommitment or right around that time, you told Jeremy, hey, there's a reason why I'm here. So clearly, like Illinois had done a good job of kind of staying around. So what's the key in your eyes, for a coaching staff to say, hey, you're still a priority to us, even though you're committed elsewhere, but we're not going to be like over the top all over you and make you feel uncomfortable, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I really didn't talk to him during those 7-8 months. I think they're really respectful on that end. And so I was really respectful of Michigan State as well. Like, all right, I'm committed to school. I gave my head, I gave my word. So let's treat this with utmost respect. And when I decided to go to Michigan State and commit, I called up the whole staff at Illinois. I said, hey, like, thank you for everything. It's been a pleasure. Like, and then, because you never know, down the road what can happen. You don't want to leave a bad relationship somewhere, whether it's, all right, you need to hit the portal, or, you're recruiting, stuff happens in recruiting, or, you maybe have to ask for him for a job at some point. So that was big for me too. And so during that time, yeah, we really didn't talk. But when I called him up, I kind of just said, hey, like, with the situation right now, I don't really know too much into it. I want to come down again, see everything, get everything going in the head again, let my family see it. So I think that was big.
Talking with AJ Dennis, 4-star Illinois commit here. AJ, obviously the staff has a history of that offensive line development. What did you like when you sat down the football side of things? Obviously you connected with them, but the football side of things, what did you like about Bart and Coach Lunny and Brett Bielema's approach with offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, you turn on the tape, they're straining through everything. They're going, they're finishing blocks downfield. You look at Isaiah Adams. He's one of the best guys that you can watch for that. He puts his effort, he puts his technique, he plays great pod level. So getting to watch, their film and then sitting down and talking about my film and some of the similarities that he looks for as an offensive lineman, and guys on the team compared to mine, really kind of opened my eyes. We're similar. I just have to fine tune things. Learn the different techniques, learn the strength. But he kind of showed me the baseline that I have in the mold and what he can turn that into.
So you're getting here in just a couple of weeks, AJ.
Yeah.
That's a quick turnaround here.
Yeah.
What's your mindset? We just heard from Coach Lunny. He's like, this guy we think can get into the 2 deep pretty quickly on a group that's obviously adding offensive linemen in the transfer portal, all that. So what's your approach when you get here in Champaign in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, recruiting matter, like the rankings matter, stars matter, but at the end of the day, like, you walk in that room, well, all right, cool. That was in high school, So my plan is, put the nose down, get the playbook in, and just go to work, take every little chance I can to get better. I'm going to take, whether that's staying after or extra meetings or, getting out into the indoor more, extra lifts. And I'm just really excited to be able to work with Coach Tank and, hopefully have him set me up for the ability to potentially get on the field early.
All right, AJ, give us a hockey story here. 1, how much did it help you? And 2, do you miss it?
I miss it 100%. That's first love. I've started skating at 2 years old. And I still skate when I can. So I think a lot of it translates, between weight distribution, hip movement. You have to be very flexible. You have to have very loose hips to be able to play the game. And yeah, a lot of balance. You watch edge work. So I mean, you have 2 edges on your skates, and so edge work's a huge thing with hockey. How to move and how to translate weight. And so when it comes down to it, like, there's so many similarities. Drive blocking is a lot like coming out of a stride. You're flat-footed, and then you pop your feet. You're on the insteps. You're pushing off, and then you get the backward skating. You got a guy coming down, and especially as defenseman, like you got a wing coming down the boards. You have to open your hips. You have to skate backwards and kind of cut them off. So I think of that a lot as like a pass set. Um, so I think a lot of it translates to it. And then I think the biggest thing that I got out of hockey is learning how to compete, playing on a national scale for hockey. Taught you how to be a competitive kid from early standpoint. It also taught you how to, be I'm not gonna say dirty, but it taught you how to be. Um, I'm sorry, just to get after it. I mean, hockey's a sport. Hockey's a physical sport, especially when you're going at 15, 16, 17, 18 miles an hour on skates. You got it's either hit or be hit, and so I think that's where my physicality came from.
Yeah, I don't know that I would enjoy being not AJ Dennis being hit by AJ Dennis at 18 miles an hour on skates. Zoom out on this process a little bit, AJ. Like just in observing you and how you handled everything, and I talked to your high school coach. It sounded very business-like, very, I guess, matter of fact. Like you handled it really well. So where does that come from to be able to slow down this whole thing and kind of attack the points of information that you want to attack?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to come from seeing other kids go through it. We've had a couple of kids. I'm sure Coach Mack kind of hit on this that have come through and have gone to the D1 ranks. But seeing how they went about their business, the pros, the cons, and then at the end of the day, like still keeping it about high school. You still got a team that you got to go to after that weekend of visiting. You still have meetings that Sunday night. You're still at practice every day with those guys. You're still competing with those guys. So I think a lot of it, like certain kids get into the recruiting process almost a little too much. But for me, it was like, all right, I'm going to handle it when I'm not at school, when I'm not with the guys, when I'm not on the field. And so you kind of have to find that time to separate it.
Before I let you go, AJ, last thing I got for you is Brandon Hansen played a role in your recruitment. TJ McMillan played a role in your recruitment. What can you tell me about those guys as recruiters?
They're great people. You look at the offensive line room, everybody in there, they're great quality people, and they're going to push each other. Brandon was somebody I kind of clicked with right away. I met him, it would be Saturday morning at the Northwestern game, and I think we hung out till about Saturday at 2 a.m. So being around him was awesome. Same thing with TJ. TJ was awesome. He was a great host, and then he also brought me along around a lot of the other guys. Hunter White Mack, Joey Okla, Sam. So I got to spend a lot of time with the guys, a lot of good quality time. Get a real feel for how they think and what they feel about the program and how they feel about the coaching staff and their style of coaching.
Well, AJ Dennis, hey, congratulations on the big day. I know it's been a long, arduous process for you. Congratulations on it. Happy holidays to you and your family. Say hey to your parents for us.
Thank you, guys, too. Appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks, AJ.
Great stuff from AJ Dennis. And I'm sure this guy is glad that AJ Dennis.
We're moving this along here.
Yeah, awesome. we're lining this up pretty well. Trey Petty, Illini quarterback signee, got the Illini jacket on. I see it. Congratulations on the big day, Trey. What was this like for you? We got you muted, Trey. Unmute yourself, and then
There we go.
Here you good.
Nah, it was a great day. It's a blessing to be able to say I signed to University of Illinois, and blessed to say that I'm able to go continue my academic and college career, football career at University of Illinois.
Well, Trey, you had so many options. I know Illinois really pushed for you in April and the spring. At the end of the day, why is Illinois the place you see is your best fit for the future?
Coach Lennon known for having a dual threat athletic type quarterback at UTSA. I think he had one. What's his name? Frank Harris.
Yep.
He had him, so he did big things with him. And I think with my athletic ability and my mental abilities, I think I'll be able to take Illinois' offense to the next level with him beside me. So, I mean, the biggest thing, they pushed real hard. Coach B made me his priority. Made it clear that he wanted me and he needed me to be part of this 24 class. And Coach Lennon and Coach Art made it even better. They pushed hard right along with him. So for them three guys to push so hard towards me just made it feel right to put my trust in them.
Yeah, what is it with Coach Lunny that allowed you to connect it as fast and as well as you guys did?
He got a great personality. He's not one of them coaches that try to be so professional all the time. He likes to laugh and joke around at times. He got a good personality in my opinion. And like even when we're in the film room talking, we'll laugh and joke in the film room, but a lot of things we agree on is a lot of things I like to do. And I think we just understand football, and that's just gonna take us far.
Yeah, and Luke Altmaier, obviously, you guys have a history together. You backed him up before. What did he tell you about this program, and what's it going to be like just to reunite with him, a guy that you've known for a while?
He preaches to me that it's a great place to be. It's a great city, great university. It's a lot of good people on that staff, even if it's academics, nutrition. All those people he talks highly of, and even when I went up there for two visits, I noticed it, and I could tell right away that all those people are good and they're there for you. But yeah, he preached to me, let's do it again. Let's do it how we did in high school.
Well, Trey, you said Coach Art. He's only been coach for a year, but
Yeah.
he seems to be taking pretty well to it. What stands out about him? What can you tell us about him?
Coach Art, he brings the energy. Even if we're on a FaceTime call, he's hollering, he's jumping around, he's pumped at all times. That's the biggest thing I like about Art. I think like to me, he got the best personality out of anybody on that staff. So for him to be one of my quarterback coaches, it's gonna be good. So I think just me and him together gonna make a dynamic duo when it comes to football film room.
Well, Trey, we know recruiting. Even when you commit, other schools want to talk. Maybe some schools in your backyard wanted to keep you there. What kept you with Illinois? What kept you with Illinois throughout this process, despite that?
Like I said, it's a process where a commitment is like you putting your trust into those. Like I'm putting my trust into that school and that university. So I wouldn't have committed if I didn't trust those guys and that whole staff and the university. So just after my commitment, they never eased up. They never lacked. They stayed on the gas at all times. So not one time did I second guess I might go to Mississippi State or something. Like at all times, I just knew I'm going to Illinois and I'm going to sign December and be at school in January. So like I said, they never gave up. They never eased up. Never got relaxed. They knew what they wanted, so they made it clear that I was what they wanted. So that just makes it easier for me.
Yeah, and they made it a point, Trey, to come see you in person. Coach Lunny twice, Coach Bielema. What did that tell you about maybe the level of seriousness they had and making sure that you guys got all the way to this day in the recruiting process?
Yeah, it means a lot. No schools did that. No schools done that for me. So to see them do it, see them come around a lot. They came to 2 games, 2 home visits. So that just proves that they wanted me for real and that I'm family, that I was family before I even signed the papers, honestly. And that's what I was looking for, somebody that would take me in as a player. Like even when I wasn't signed, even when the papers weren't signed, they took me in as I'm already a player. I'm already Illinois football player. So I think that was the biggest thing.
I know you mentioned Frank Harris. We saw Luke use his legs quite a bit in Coach Lunny's offense this year. How do you feel like you fit with your skill set into what they want to do? And you mentioned help elevate this offense. How do you feel like you can do that in time?
Like my favorite thing to do is throw the deep ball. So Coach Lunny loved to take shots. So for me to be able to run around in the pocket and take off of my legs and to be able to throw the deep ball pretty well, I think that's what Coach Lunny looking for in the offense, and that's what he want to do. And for me to be able to do it pretty good, I think that's only going to see the offense rise and continue to get better and grow.
Trey, on our ride back, I believe, from Tampa last year for the bowl game, we drove through Mississippi, your home state, and it's obviously different a little than Illinois. People talk about the weather this time of year, but what are you bringing from Starkville? Like, what are you going to bring from Mississippi to keep a flavor of home up here in Champaign?
You mean like what I'm bringing? Like,
yeah, like what are you going to show your teammates? What are you going to teach your teammates about?
Like, do you and Luke have anything that like is like, oh, this is something that like we did back home that we're going to bring here?
No, probably not. But everybody just talk about my accent For real. How I talk. That's probably the biggest thing. But something I bring to the university and the people around me is just energy. I'm gonna be positive at all times. Number positive energy. I'm want everybody to be great, so I'm the type that's not gonna sugarcoat too much. I'm gonna let you know what's going on with what I don't like, and I want people to do the same to me. So I want to be great. I want everybody to be great around me. So they're gonna get that positive leader out of me.
We could talk all about your physical skills, which are obvious if anybody puts on the film, but you're a winner, Trey. You've been at back-to-back state championship games, won one as a junior, just came up short this past year. How do you lead? Like, how do you approach the leadership part of the quarterback position?
Like I said, I'm gonna tell people, even if they don't want to hear it, you still gotta tell them because people not gonna get better if you just be nice and sugarcoat things all the time. But I'm the type of leader that knows when to ease up at times, because I know as a player, sometimes you don't want to hear things, and that just mess with your mental ability sometimes. So I think I'm one of them smart leaders that know when to say things to players and know how to approach people and talk to people like they're people. So I think I'm one of those leaders, and also I'm the type of leader that if I'm gonna tell you something, like if I'm gonna encourage you to do something, I'm gonna do it as well. You're not gonna see me telling people to do things that I'm not doing.
Two more for you, Trey. You mentioned Coach Bielema made you feel like a priority early on, and we've heard when he really gets. Coach Lunny said when Coach B is really involved in the recruiting process, he's pretty on top of it. So, what stood out about him in particular in the way that he prioritized you and made you feel wanted?
Uh, like I said, it's the whole staff. It's their whole like demeanor, how they carry themselves. Everybody, like Coach B, most head coaches, they act a little different from everybody else. But he's one of those head coaches that just like he's another person. He treats you like you're one of him. Like he don't treat nobody no different. Everybody's gonna get the same Coach B every day of the week, anytime. And like I said, he's just a cool person to be around. He always positive. It ain't too much negativity coming from him. And like his history, his background. He coached Russell Wilson, and that team was successful. And a lot of times he compared me to Russell. So I think he has a plan for me that I probably can't see just yet. But I think he has a plan for me that'll take the football team very far and take me far in life. So like I said, I just put my trust in him, and I trust him since day one, since I met him, and he never eased up since I committed.
All right, my last one. We're gonna have some fun with this. You're up here in a couple weeks, Trey. What are you looking forward to food wise to getting in Champaign when you get here?
Oh man, I don't know. See, I got to slack on the fast foods, so
Yeah, Tank
probably
wouldn't
just
like that, man.
yeah, I got to slack on the fast food, but I don't know.
Some
I'm
good
the type
Mexican
that
places around here, man.
yeah, it
Cactus
is.
Grill.
Yeah, they took me to some places, but I'm probably just gonna. They feed us 3 times a day, so I'm sure I'll be full off that. But definitely, I'm gonna try to watch what I eat. Get as healthy as possible. Uh, I think that's probably the biggest part for me. Getting bigger and stronger. So eating right, probably the best thing, and the biggest thing I'm gonna be trying to do. So eat right, stay in the weight room, and just be healthy for real. I might slack a few days.
Cheat
That's
day.
the stuff.
Gotta
That's a
get cheat
pro
day.
answer, but the slacking's the key.
Yeah, everybody's gonna slack. If somebody lie about slacking, they're lying. If somebody ever said they're slacking, they never slack, they're lying.
Well, Trey, before I let you go, was that the state championship ring you just flashed
Yes,
up there
sir.
before? That's
Yeah,
pretty
those are
nice,
nice.
It's big old ring.
man. Yeah, you wear that around the rest of your life, man. Well, Trey Petty, congratulations on the big day. Thanks for joining us, man. I know the fans really appreciate it, and they're looking forward to seeing you here. So enjoy the holidays and see you at spring ball, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Trey. Thank you.
Great stuff from all those guys.
Man,
Take
that
a
was
little
fun.
breath. Yeah, we're
I
going to
know,
get
I'm sitting
Tyshawn
here in my
Griffin,
car.
Chicago Morgan Park wide receiver on here in a little bit, but it was a nice rhythm of all those guys. That's why I like getting these guys on. Trey, AJ, love getting to know those guys the last several months. Tyshawn, man, it feels like I've been talking to him for almost 2 years now. leading to this signing day. But also thanks to Barry and Aaron for filling us in on what they think about these guys, and also going into a huge, and Brett mentioned this, huge offseason of development. It's not just about adding talents, but developing the guys they've added in previous signing days, Joey.
Yeah, I want to talk real quickly about Aaron, because what we've observed of him over the last year since he stepped into this role, probably Jeremy before that, we can go back before that, is he's transparent. And I appreciated when we zoomed out, off the recruits a little bit and looked at the offseason, looked at the season pass. He didn't hide from anything. He didn't, he sounded like he knew what it was. And like, we appreciate that when we're talking to these guys. You're not trying to pull teeth or have to be combative about, just asking about the reality of what it was. And I thought he gave good insight. And I thought your question about the defense and maybe making those tweaks is a really big storyline to watch, Jeremy, over the course of the next couple months.
Yeah, because you look at the Big Ten scoring defense, number 12 and 14 are Illinois and Purdue. And I know Purdue's in their first year, but Ryan Walters was better than that his first year here at Illinois, right? So, Brett, that just stuck with me when Brett said that after Northwestern. We have to maybe counter now. Maybe we have to do things differently, because teams figure us out. All these coaches are really smart. They're really smart about what they do. Illinois was really smart putting this defense together, but then there's always a counter to it. There's always a weakness that you can attack. And obviously injuries and, young guys, having to play young guys last year had a part to do with that. Maybe not recruiting enough transfers at the defensive back position had something to do with it. But you're getting into the point of, I always found Aaron has held himself accountable. Brett holds him accountable. I know, people wanted a different kind of accountability, but I just never saw that happening. And I think Aaron has always been that way. And I think Barry has always been that way. Early on the season, he knew it wasn't good enough, but obviously the offense showed a lot of signs of life in those final 6 games. So yes, I've always appreciated those guys kind of hold themselves accountable when they talk to us, and they know what their issues are. And they're not combative about, us asking about those issues, because they know it's a bigger issue internally than external.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a signing day special, so let's zoom in. Any takeaway, Jeremy, from Aaron, Barry, Trey, AJ that really sticks out in your number? Unrelated to the prospects, Art Sikowski, like someone mentioned it. Who would have thought that? We're not just making something up. Art is a really, really big deal inside of that room, and he's a guy who's going to move very, very quickly up this coaching. So I just wanted to put that out there. But recruiting wise, anything that really stood out to you about those 4 conversations?
Yeah, I want to get to some people's questions before we get out of here. So if you have questions, send those. We appreciate super chats, but if you want to send those questions in, we will hit on some of those. I want to do a My Guys segment of guys I just like their film, maybe more than the rankings and all of that. So we'll get to some of that here coming up. I just think when I zoom out at this class, and I'm probably going to write about this, but it's so much about the trenches in this class.
Yes.
You should be excited about Khalil Valentine. You should be excited about Trey Petty. You should be excited about Tyshawn Griffin, Vernon Woodward, Easton Baker. But more than half the scholarships that they're going to spend this offseason, both in the transfer portal and in prep prospects and JUCO prospects, are going to be guys who play on the line of scrimmage, whether that's offensive line, defensive line, or edge, outside linebacker, right? And they need that. They need more depth. They need more developmental players. They're hitting the transfer portal. J.C. Davis, New Mexico, commits today. Offensive tackle. Kevin Wigginson, Michigan State transfer guard, is going to announce his decision. And Brett Bielema basically was sounding the alarm that, hey, we're going to have a good afternoon. So you can take that for what it's worth. And they've added 2 defensive linemen, and they're trying to add another, and Isaiah Hastings. So they're patching those holes so they can compete right away. But this staff has had a lot of Power 5 offensive line prospects the last couple of years. That has not happened. That did not happen the last couple of years under Brett Bielema, and it shows. It shows the last couple of years when depth has been hurt. They got lucky last year with offensive line injuries. They did not this year. It happened really quickly, and their lack of depth really showed. Defensive line, Brett Bielema said today, we haven't been able to get a lot of guys on board because Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph are here, and nobody wants to sit behind them. They lost some recruiting battles. That is for sure. But last year, they kind of added some under-the-radar guys. This year, they landed 3 guys in Angelo McCollum, Demetrius John, Eddie Turk. I'll add Joe Barna and Josiah Knight, all Power 5 prospects. You got to keep stacking those, Joey. You have to keep stacking those, not only for depth, competition, but you just got to keep stacking those. And that, I thought this was a step in the right direction, even if it might take a year or 2 for it to pay off, outside of maybe a guy like AJ Dennis, right, who might be able to crack the 2 deep right away.
Yeah, I don't know. I know we're working on uploading the video of Brett Bielema's presser, Jeremy, but I thought it was really interesting, telling, whatever you want to say, that Brett Bielema basically mentioned that. And he said, hey, paraphrase him, he said, hey, I told Josh Whitman this summer that now we're starting to go up against teams in the recruiting trail that we play on the field. And to be frank, that wasn't as much the case in his first year at Illinois, which was coming out of that COVID year, just kind of a real fast, higher, quick relationship type thing. But yeah, that what he means by that is they're in Power 5 battles. They're winning some of those Power 5 battles, not all. We can go down the list and talk about the Power 5 battles they haven't won, but like that's how you build depth over time. And now it's on them to take some of those guys, whether it's the highly ranked AJ Dennis's, and help him get to that level they feel like they can get him at, or someone who's not as highly ranked and develop him into the level that they see them at. But they're in the mix a lot more. And I know that's not, but that it feels like I'm not trying to consolation prize this, right? It's like, oh, well, they didn't get Marquise Lightfoot, but they were in the mix. That doesn't do anything for a fan. I understand that, but they are getting a lot of these. They got Joe Barna, right? Who is very much in the conversation with Wisconsin. Werner Woodward, we talked to Aaron Henry about, like, those are Power 5 either flips or wins head to head. AJ Dennis, I mean, like, so that's what we mean when we say they're in the conversation. Like, recruiting's a lose game. Like, you are going to lose more than you win in the recruiting business, but they're getting some of those wins, and now they've got to stack those and develop them or help them get to where they need to be.
Yeah, I want to build on that. We'll answer some of your questions. Schedule to get Tyshawn Griffin on here in a moment, but let's hear from one of our great sponsors first. Bustling holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, flavorful meals to fuel you on jam-packed days. Well, Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you eat well for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all of your holiday to-dos. Treat yourself to high-quality, delicious meals over the holidays. Choose from 35-plus chef-crafted meals every week that support a healthy lifestyle and meet your meal preferences, whether it's calorie smart, vegan and veggie, protein plus, and more wholesome options. So cross meal prepping off your list this holiday season with Factor. Skip the meal planning, grocery shopping, chopping, prepping, and cleaning up, and get Factor's fresh, never frozen meals delivered to your door. They're ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. Head to factormeals.com/Illini50 and use code Illini50 to get 50% off. That's code Illini50 at factormeals.com/Illini50 to get 50% off. All right, Joey, let's talk a little bit more about this class, ranked number 43 in the country. And this is not a Zookian level recruiting haul, right? Like, when you think of Ron Zook's first couple classes, they were top 30 in the country. You started to get some 5 stars. Like, this is not 2007 where Martez Wilson and Regis Ben came in on the same day. And you see some other schools, like Nebraska got a 5-star today. And I think that gets a lot of people excited, understandably so. Like, you got to get talent in here. But you mentioned it. Like, they are winning some battles that they didn't win in the previous couple of years. I mean, Lovie Smith the last couple of years, Ron Zook's last couple of years, Tim Beckman's tenure for the most part. Like, you are not winning a lot of these battles. And Brett Bielema is telling the truth that they are getting in battles and starting to win more against the teams they are competing against. Like, you are losing some to Wisconsin, you're also winning some. Like, you lose some to Iowa, you've also won some with guys like Aiden Lawfrey, right? So, like, you are starting to win more of those, and you're starting to win more of those games as well. So it doesn't happen as quickly. Maybe it's not a supernova. Maybe it's not what Missouri is doing today and what Drinkwitz is in his 5th year in Missouri, something like that. So I get it. It's not as, but I never thought Illinois was going to be that. And I never thought Illinois would be that under Brett Bielema either. Like, I just think this is a very gradual development program, and now it's about developing it. You've got 3 recruiting classes in. You still have some holes to fill in the transfer portal due to some of the early struggle or the late struggles of the Lovie Smith era, and maybe some early struggles in their recruiting class. We'll see what the 2022 class does here. But I do think it's a more gradual process than people want, even in today's transfer portal era, where you can fill holes, you can add some talent, like a Luke Altmaier, like some of these other pieces, but you still got to develop these high school players. And that's the way Brett Bielema still wants to do it, while filling holes through the transfer portal.
Yeah, he's trying to balance both of those worlds, right? And to make sure that development thing's key. But as you look at, let's say, the offensive line, where we've talked about J.C. Davis, or probably a half hour away from seeing if they land another offensive lineman, Jeremy, out of the transfer portal. You know, there's going to be like, you got to bridge, right? You've got to bridge the present with some of the, on the offensive line. We could say that the last two classes have had some good players. So some good players, AJ Dennis, TJ McMillan, Brandon Hanson, Brandon Henderson. Like, you can go down the list. They've added talent there, but it takes time. So you're seeing them go to the portal and try to plug those holes. You can look at the defensive line as well. So yeah, I think a lot of it is, and I get it. I get it, man. When you look around the country and it's everyone's adding this or that or this, and like Illinois is more, they're very set in who they are and what they do. Aaron Henry talked about, Barry Lundy talked about, they know what type of players, what type of guys they target. They're a lot more intentional. I don't even know if that's fair because I don't want to indicate other programs aren't, but I think you just have to set your expectations as to what you think this program is going to do and how they're going to recruit. And that being said, you still got to go and you've got to win some of those 4-star battles. You do. Mm-hmm. And like that's part of taking the next step is getting an AJ Dennis, a Malik Elzy, a Caden Fagan, and going from there. But this program also has got to hit on some of those development pieces.
Well, and this is where, like we talked about earlier, this is where Gabe Akis has to be the star. Seth Coleman, Aaron Henry mentioned him. Sounds like a comeback.
I wanted to follow.
I should have followed up.
I thought, man, that was interesting. Circle that.
I should have followed up.
Someone call JoJo Hayden. Get him in. Get him in here. He'll tell us.
Yeah, he's the one that breaks all the news for us. Yeah, so I think that's the important thing. Blake Elzy. It's time. Ashton Hollins. Let's see if he can be a playmaker. A guy who that might get overlooked because Khalil Valentine signs today. It's a big year ahead for Aiden Lawfrey, right? 3rd year in the program. 1, can you stay healthy? 2, time to contribute. Reggie Love is not in front of you anymore. Chase Brown is not in front of you anymore. It's his time. And even if Caden Fagan's your number 1 back, you might need some pieces behind him. So guys like Jordan Anderson and Josh McCray, it's going to be important for those guys. But Brett Bielema even singled out like the offensive linemen they've brought in, like Brandon Henderson. It's going to be his time to shine, most likely. TJ McMillan is going to be an important depth piece. And then you look at guys like Hunter Whitenack, like Clayton Leonard, Joey Okla. Competition's not getting any easier. So guys like that, it's going to be really important. So that's what's going to be. If we got to watch spring ball and training camp, that would be the most fun things to watch, is to see these guys who can emerge. Because I think we knew exactly who the guys were. Like going into next year, who is going to be the second wide receiver behind Pat Bryant?
Well, let's go to Griffin's message here, or question here real quick, because I think it fits in perfectly. Is we can just look at the safety position in particular. Who's going to be that? Like, that's what we're talking about. Who's going to step up? And I read that earlier, and I thought, well, we know, Demetrius Hill, Matthew Bailey should come back off of their surgeries. You would pencil those two in the conversation with Miles Scott.
I mean, I saw Matthew Bailey for 20 snaps against Penn State. And how big of a difference did he make in the run game? Like, not even the passing, the run game. How big of a difference did he make? And they think he's a star, but he's coming off 2 major injuries. So, can you bet on that? They obviously are very high on him. He's looked really good in the time that we've seen him. But it's a huge year for him. Yes, sorry to interrupt you, but just those 20 snaps against Penn State, I was like, oh, this guy's really good.
Yeah, and to build off to Griffin's question, like, okay, someone else has got to be there. Like some of those guys you recruited in the 22 class, that 23 class, that your TJ Griffins of the world, where does Tyson Rooks factor in? Like that's where, as you start to look at this development, like those are the guys who have to step up, and whether that's starting or whether that's a very reliable backup in the case of an injury. Like when we say it's time, that's what we mean. It doesn't mean it's time to be an all Big Tenner, though. If you can do that, certainly circle that as a goal, but just time to step up and be able to be in that conversation.
Well, can Xavier Scott be a superstar now? Like, can he be a star defensive back? Like, I thought he had a really good year as a first-time starter. Can he take a step forward? Then talking about the DBs, like, do they have to shift guys from corner to safety or nickel to safety to have some depth there? We think Miles Scott will certainly be a part of that. Matt Krasetich, should probably mention him. They seem like
good call. Thank you.
He can make an impact. But Jaheim Clark, Zach Toby, Sabur Kareem, all of those guys got on the field last year. Toby more than the others, but they're really high on Jaheim Clark. And obviously Sabur Kareem was a 4-star guy. So there's talent back there, but it is different, it feels like, in year 2 for those guys. All right, we've had AJ Dennis. We've had Trey Petty. Man, Trey Petty had AJ Dennis protecting him, and then he's got Tyshawn Griffin to throw to, the 3-star, 4-star in some places, wide receiver out of Chicago Morgan Park. Tyshawn, thanks for joining us, man, and happy signing day. What was this day like for you, man?
This day was epic, man. I liked it a lot. It was very great and very fun. It was very exciting to sign the big game.
Well, when was the first time you heard from this Illinois staff, Tyshawn? Because it feels like this has been 3 years in the making. Just take us through the relationship building and how you ended up wanting to go to Illinois.
So it was my freshman year. Um, Coach McDonald had came in, said he liked me, and right at the back of the season, freshman year. And ever since then, he kept in contact. Coach B kept in contact. Like the whole Illinois staff kept in contact. They kept in contact more than any other colleges. And it's like, I might as well stay home. Then also like my head coaches and stuff, they also like alumni there, like Chris James. Also my co-defensive coordinator, defense coordinator. He used to be an analyst there at Illinois. I think 17. Marcus Thomas, he left. He at Maryland now. He was another Illini DB.
Well, you also had Ricky Smalling was your receiving coach as well, who's played at Illinois. Yeah, like what did Chris and Ricky tell you about Illinois and the benefit of playing for the in-state school?
The first thing they say, I'm going to have fun there. No matter what, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have a great time there. They're going to take good care of me and everything. And then, yeah, pretty much that's it. And then also they say staying in state, it's like nothing could go wrong. So it's like me staying in state. Oh, I'm back on. They was like me staying in state. It was like it'd be a great idea. They wasn't like so far. They always said they leave the decision to me, and they did. But I also just thought like Illinois would be the best for me. What's like the best athletes in the best state.
Tyshawn, we just watched Isaiah Williams have a first-team All Big Ten year playing slot in Coach Lundy's offense. What does that show you can be done at Illinois at that position with players with kind of similar skill sets there?
Yeah, Coach McDonald also said me and Isaiah have the same set of skills, and always thought I'm gonna be the next guy up to him. So it was with him. Congratulations. Thank you, Coach. It was my birthday.
That's awesome.
And then, yeah, they always told me that I was gonna be the next guy up for Isaiah, and they always comparing our skill sets. Like every time I visit, they show the play similar to Isaiah, and they compare them to mine.
It's very cool. Tyshawn, I know Coach Bielema mentioned you had ACL surgery last week, I think. How are you feeling? How's that recovery process going?
Yeah, when I first got the surgery, oh my God, worst few days. I did not like it at all. Couldn't shower for like 2 days. When I finally got the shower, the heart couldn't even poop right. Like, can't poop, bro. Like, it hurt. I got a squat a certain way. I'm walking. And, but it's getting better. Since the first started therapy, they started bending it and getting so better. Then I started the second day today. Good. And I feel like when I get down to 11, the Illinois staff is going to make it more better on my knee.
Well, Tyshawn, when you get healthy, and obviously that's a process ahead, what do you bring to this Illinois program?
I bring toughness, physicality, speed, and most important, like explosiveness. Like I'm very explosive. As you can see, like my sophomore tape was the first play against Fenwick. There was some state champs that year. First play I touched the ball, I ran straight through the middle for 80 yards to score. So that showed like my explosive skills. Then mainly this year, so like my wide out set, like compared with Isaiah there, I had like got the same skills.
With Tyshawn, obviously Chicago Public League, Illinois has come in there and gotten you, Malik, the last couple of years. Did Malik committing to Illinois, did that do anything for you? Did that impact you at all? And just how are the Illini under Brett Bielema, with George McDonald, Terrence Jameson recruiting that area? Like, how are they thought of up there with your peers?
Yeah, when I seen Malik commit, I was like surprised because he had Tennessee, Kentucky. He choosing this school over there. I was like, oh, that means something's great is happening in that program. So I looked at more Illinois because like Malik, his team beat me like last year badly because of the mistakes that we made, and then I was like, Malik is a great player. From my first time seeing him, I was like, probably like about 12, like the upper kid. I was like, damn, what grade he in? He was only upper grade then I seen him commit. I always looked, and I was like, since he's staying, was great. The best CPS teams combining together at Illinois and making another program.
Tyshawn, when we watch your tape, I mean, you're not the biggest guy. Malik's a very big guy. You're not the biggest, as big as Malik, but you play very physically. So where does that physicality, for maybe not being the biggest guy, where does that come from for you that kind of allows you to have that?
Basically, just to me, I say I'm just stay fast. Like all my coach, every time my coach see me, I say something like slow, like just playing. He say just stay fast, just stay fast. So like being like little, but actually like being fast. So like not Tyreek, he's little, but he's fast. So like nobody can keep up with him. So like me just stand up with my speed, which shows that I can compete with the other sides of the guys. So it's like being little actually is like have an advantage. Like they barely can see you. You more shifty, you more fast, then also you more explosive. So yeah, me being little, yeah, and then really, I mean, especially in 7-on-7, I was like playing with Hero and Midwest also. So I was going against like 4 stars, 3 stars. I also played on the boom. I played with Mario the DB and like Marion Stewart and then all of them. So it's like I've been competing with a lot of big guys. Also like Kanye, I competed with Kanye before we went at it a couple times. And like also the other big names like in Florida and stuff.
I know you mentioned Coach McDonald. What is it about him that allowed you to build such a strong relationship? As Jeremy said, you guys have been talking forever. Feels like it's been years. So what did he do that helped build that trust in you that you wanted to make Illinois a place?
So McDonald, he just kept contacting me. So it's like I'm not a bit of a talker. I'm actually like I kind of got a little bit of social anxiety. So it's like I don't talk that much. So it's like he kept contacting me on a podcast right now. I'm on a podcast right now. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, McDonald, he just kept contacting me. So it was like he brought me closer to him. So like I started opening up more. So like more than he see me, the more I started talking to him. When the first time he see me, like, let's say my freshman year, I just walked in and everything he said to me, I just said, yeah, coach. And then I kept seeing him constantly. That's when I opened up.
Well, Tyshawn, you couldn't tell it. I love talking to you, so you're really good at this. Before I let you go, Tyshawn, what is something, and I'm putting you on the spot here, something people don't know about you, something that's outside of football? Because we talk about as a football player, we want to get to know you a little bit more as a person. What's something people wouldn't know about you or something you love to do?
So I'm basically I'm a huge video gamer. So I'm not a huge video gamer, but like I'm good in video games, like all video games, like Fortnite, Warzone, 2K especially. Yeah, I'm a trash talker too in 2K. Even though like I'm on the game, so you can't see me. So like I'm not gonna be so shy in the game. So like I'm a trash talker, like cute trash. I'm gonna call you trash and everything on the game. And then like I know you can't beat me, so like I'm gonna even make you more mad. I'm probably point a finger at you to irritate you to make you just want to fight me. So like yeah, I like video games a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like video games, and I like hanging out with friends. So like going out to just like grab some food, then like have deeply talks about football and stuff, and going up. And pretty much that's it.
I was going to ask you, are you more confident on the football field or playing video games? Like, is there more trash talk from Tyshawn Griffin video games or the football field?
I'm more confident on the football field. Also the video games too. So I see the video games part got it more. This is like if I know I'm betting you out, I'm a trash talk. Like in games, if I know I'm betting you, I'm not even gonna trash talk you. Like in games, I don't trash talk. It's like many people this year they try to trash talk me, but it's like I can't. You can't trash talk me because I just look at you and smile. It's like everything. I always keep a smile on my face no matter what. So it's like you just call my name, I just smile. I can't just douse me. So yeah, it's like trash talking. I never trash talk. I just let my game speak for itself. If I ever trash talk, it just goes like. You got me out my game. Is like, yeah, pretty much. I just want to compete now. You got me serious. I was serious now. I was serious before Ryan got me serious.
Well, Tyshawn, hey, congratulations on the big day. Thanks for spending some time with us today. And go get back to all the people. They didn't know you're on your podcast. So go ahead and go talk with all your people, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Tyshawn. Appreciate it.
Great stuff. from Ty
What a
Shumpert.
vibe. What a vibe. Signing day vibes are awesome
Love it.
for kids,
Love
man.
it.
Like,
It's a
also,
huge
thanks to
day.
them. Thanks to them. Like, this is such a big day for them. And to spend
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes to jump on and hang out with us and let some fans get to know them a little bit, man, that's cool. And those guys, all three of them are great.
Yeah. All right. Fedigator said, any possibility we hear from another commitment in 30 minutes, Kevin Wigginton, the Michigan State offensive lineman, is announcing at 5:30 Eastern, which is 4:30 Central Time. That's in 15 minutes. We're going to stay on.
I was going
until
to ask,
then.
are we just going to hang around and see?
Yeah, we're just going to stay on
see
until
what's
about
going
then.
on?
Yeah. So let's get to some other questions on here. Fedigator said, hit that like button. Yes. Subscribe if you're on our YouTube channel.
Hater, my guy.
Yeah, had about 200, 300 people on this the entire time. We really appreciate you guys. It's always a lot of fun to do this on signing day, but your support is what makes this work. Scott asked Joey, what does Petty mean for the quarterback depth chart? Luke has 2 years left. Donovan Leary is backup with 3 years remaining. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, I think it, to me, moves into the third quarterback, right? I mean, I think Donovan Leary is your number 2. I think Trey Petty's probably more ready to contribute immediately than Cal Swanson, who was last year's quarterback signee. We knew needed a little bit more time to develop. So I'm not going to suggest that Trey Petty comes in and he's number 2 to Luke Altmaier right away, but he's somebody who's going to come in. I would expect him to be that third guy and continue to push. Him and Donovan Leary can continue to push each other, but I think it's pretty clear to me right now it's Altmaier, Leary. Then I would think Petty, even though it might not start out that way in spring ball, but I would think that's probably where it shakes out.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I think it's Luke Altmaier is the clear starter. And I'm excited to see what he does with a year and him and Lunny together, kind of knowing each other better and just having those reps, those in-game reps. And I like that Barry was like, yeah, he wasn't happy about the end of last year.
Love
not
that.
Playing.
Love that.
Yeah, and the fact that he's admitting, like, yeah, we couldn't bench. Like, we could not bench John Paddock after what he had just done. I love finally hearing that from him. And I think Luke understood it, but it doesn't mean he's got to be happy about it. Doesn't mean he's got to be upset and enter the transfer portal either, because he's got a great opportunity at Illinois. He showed what he can do. I think we're all excited. Like, he's the most talented quarterback Illinois has had, and productive with talent that they've had in a long time and multiple years of eligibility. I know Tommy had 1 year, so I'm talking about guys with multiple years of eligibility. I'm excited about what he can do because he's a playmaker, man. But yeah, Donovan Leary, he's earned the spot now, right? He's been here a couple of years. You can tell the staff was excited about him. They continue to mention him, which means I think they value him a lot. Does he become a starter eventually? I don't know. We'll find out, but I think he's going to be one snap away from significant playing time. So while I think a lot of quarterbacks, they don't play their first or second year, they go right to the portal and they look for that immediate starting spot. I think Donovan knows, like, all right, now's my time. I can be a Big Ten quarterback this year. John Paddock had to come in the game every year. Like, when does an Illinois quarterback take all the snaps? It is very rare that happens. So Donovan Leary's got a huge opportunity in front of him. And I think, yeah, Trey is going to compete with Cal Swanson, who's an exciting athlete, good tools. I just think there's a lot of refinement he needs. He did not get a lot of snaps in this offense last year, which is why I think the spring is going to be really important for him, because I think it's mostly going to be Leary and Altmaier in the fall getting those snaps. But him and Petty competed out, and then you figure it out, Joey. Like, quarterback is a yearly thing with the depth chart. You're probably going to lose one, add one, lose one, add one at least every year. So next year heading into it, you feel you got your starter. You got a guy who's been a backup in the system the last couple of years, and you got 2 really intriguing prospects. And I think Trey Petty definitely projects to be a starter. I think Cal's a developmental prospect when he came in with a really tantalizing upside, but I think Trey's coming in with a higher floor. Trey, to me, is the best prep prospect they've added with this staff, at least ceiling, floor-wise, skill, fit. Frank Harris is a great comp. I'm glad, Trey mentioned that with Barry Lunny. Frank Harris is a heck of a college quarterback. I think Trey has that kind of upside to be the heir apparent to Luke Altmaier.
Yeah, I do. Real quick, we got a Brett signal here. I wonder what that could be.
Yeah.
We're on pins and needles here. I want to ask you this about the quarterback position, Jeremy, because I think you and I've come along to this, and you've been pretty much on this belief that you can play portal musical chairs at quarterback if you wanted to. But is Illinois set in a position, and now you assume development, right? You assume that when his time comes, Donovan Leary or Trey Petty will be ready. could Illinois be in a position to maybe hop off that game of musical chairs moving forward, just given the way that the years stack in this quarterback room?
It's what I loved about Luke Altmaier is that you got it. Here's why I always thought the transfer portal for Illinois made more sense for quarterbacks, because Illinois had this revolving door of offensive coordinators to where you're changing systems and getting, like, it's hard for them to develop quarterbacks when they don't have a system they can sell or success they can sell. Barry Lunny can sell some success now. And we're seeing that with Trey Petty. I think we're seeing that in the class of 2025 with a guy like Carson Boyd, who seems very interested in Illinois, state championship winning quarterback, highly ranked, highly recruited out of St. Louis. Like, you're starting to build something there. So yes, I think you could, as long as you can get these guys to stick around.
Right.
And if Donovan Leary is willing to stick around to wait his turn, that's great. Now, maybe with 2 years left, he changes his mind. Maybe Luke Altmaier, something happens there where you got to go add another transfer to help somebody, so you got to be flexible with those things. And I don't mind going to the portal because you can find talent. There's only so many spots, and Illinois has got a Big Ten starting spot. But yes, I think in theory, your quarterback room is set up as well as it has been since probably Wes Lunt, Riley O'Toole, Aaron Bailey, right? It's been a long time since you feel like three guys who can eventually be starters in the Big Ten. And I think if they can add a guy in 2025, I think, they're setting themselves up well. And I think Barry's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think the best way I can put it is, if you have to get back on this carousel, you have to.
I'm not afraid of it. Yeah.
Right. But every offseason you do a top positions of needs, right? And it was like a yearly tradition every year that quarterback was number one, because it's the most important position on the field and they didn't have a pipeline of them. Again, you still assume development, right? You still assume that some of these guys have plateaued, that this coaching staff can help take them to where they want to go. But in theory, you could see an offseason, this one, probably next one, where it's not number one or probably number two. And that is when you don't have to worry about that every single year. And maybe, maybe they will. But right now, in theory, I don't see that to be the biggest need next offseason, or maybe even the one after that. That's a good sign, because you don't want to have to nail your quarterback pick every single year out of the transfer portal. So, yeah, I kind of like where they're set up. And I think this is a big year for Donovan Leary to be in that. Then obviously a big development year for Cal Swanson, Trey Petty.
Yeah. All right. Woo Poppy. What's up, Woo? Do you think they'll add any more high school signees in the February signing period? I don't get that vibe. There's always potential for development. Like, I didn't know they were going to add Matthew Bailey. I didn't know they were going to add Matt Krasetich, right? So they're going to keep their eyes out for it. But scholarships are at a premium right now, Joey. And I think any more additions after adding 16 high school kids, I think any more available scholarships are very, very likely heading to transfers. And I think, if you get two offensive,
said that today.
Yeah, if you get one more defensive lineman, you get another offensive lineman, you've addressed those biggest needs. And then maybe in the spring you come back and you're like, okay, let's add one more DB. Let's add a tight end. If you feel like you need another receiver after watching your guys in the spring, I think that's when they'll reassess.
Yeah, I think what you would look for in that February portion are guys that, I don't want to say they weren't immediately sold on, but guys they maybe wanted to see a little bit more. Maybe, like, I remember Matthew Bailey was coming off that hamstring injury, and they wanted to see a little bit more of that. I don't think this coaching staff, Brett Bielema, I used the word paranoid the other day in a chat with you and Ryan Easterling. Ryan kind of pushed back, but I don't think he's going to wait till February just for the sake of waiting for February for a guy that maybe they think is under the radar. Right? I think he'd rather move on that, get these guys in place by December with the possibility of coming in the spring than just wait on it because it's a fun thing. Well, if they know, they know. And I think you're right. Brett Bielema said, we knew the guys who were leaving, Johnny Newton, Keith Randolph, the graduates, those go pretty much towards high school. And your Reggie Loves, your Sed McConnells, your Sean Millers, probably, maybe to a degree, Isaiah Williams, those go more towards portal additions where you've got quote unquote holes to fill or gaps to fill. And I think that's kind of what we'll see moving forward as they round out this 24 roster.
Yeah, and another thing you got to keep in mind is there will be more scholarships that likely open up after the spring, after some guys graduate. right?
Yes,
Like you got to get
yes.
those guys through to graduate. You want to obviously hold your end of that bargain because that's part of your agreement when you put them on scholarship. And then there's potentially some more scholarships that become available. So that's just another thing to keep in mind there. Scott asks, do any of these incoming freshmen see the field outside of having to plug holes due to injury? Who would you bet on, Joey? Let's pick top 3 guys that will see the field the most. Like at the end of the year, who has the most snaps out
Okay,
of this freshman class?
I want to ask, are we talking just offense, defense?
Yes.
I think that's fair, because if we're putting special teams in there, then that changes. So just offense, defense. Khalil Valentine,
Yep.
Werner Woodward,
Yep.
and this is where it gets a little difficult because I think Andrew or AJ Dennis could. I think it's also maybe not ideal if it's him, just given what I think is going to happen in 5 minutes.
Tyshawn Griffin coming off an injury.
I would say maybe one of the defensive linemen. Maybe
I did not
McCollum.
expect Alex Bray to be one of the top guys last year.
That's right. That's exactly right. Right. So I would say my number 1 is Valentine, 2 Woodward, and 3. I don't want to say TBD. That's cheating. So I'll say one of the defensive linemen.
Yeah.
Still kind of cheating.
One freshman DB is going to make an impact. Jaheim Clark goes on special teams, so that I'm not trying to cheat there, but there's room for somebody to come in and make an impact.
Aaron's saying Vernon was a little more physically, kind of indicating he was there, was like the biggest green light in my brain. Like, okay, watch him. Could be a guy.
Khalil's obvious. I think AJ Dennis can play Brandon Henderson's role. Like, I don't think he's going to be thrown to the fire right away as a starter or anything like Alex Palczewski and Vidarian Lowe. That's not a recipe for success for anybody. But if you had Kevin Wigginton, like, can Andrew Dennis be your backup center? Can Andrew Dennis be a backup guard like Brandon Henderson was last year? I think that's absolutely dark horse. Can we go Tanner Hollinger?
That is good. That's good.
My only concern is he's getting here in June. Like that, like he plays basketball. He's kind of Carlos Orr, plays basketball. And I don't think they're going to count on him. But tight ends like Griffin Moore, Tanner Arkin, Henry Boyer, Owen Anderson, Nate Ginn. Like
it's time for Owen Anderson and Nate Ginn to take that step in that tight end room. We talk about guys with time. It's time for them.
Henry Boyer. Like he's
Henry
played
Boyer too. Yeah.
But his playing time went down as the season went on. I really like Henry Boyer as a blocker, losing Tip Ryman. I think he's a really important piece, but Tanner Arkin was stealing his playing time by the end of the season. So no Tip Ryman. That's one of the biggest need positions, I think, long term, and I think they could use another piece there. So, again, I think it's a big spring for those guys. As you're talking about Boyer, Anderson, Ginn, like if you want to roll, I think you got to earn it this spring. So Hollinger just could be a dark horse just because of the need there.
I also want to – I didn't say this to Barry because I didn't want to put him on the spot, but when he says, you basically you got to get one skill and develop the other is a summary of what Barry said at tight end. I wanted to say, yeah, because if they have both, they're at Georgia or they're at Alabama. Like there's like 10 schools tight ends go to if they have both of those things. You can put Iowa in that conversation. So, yeah, Hollinger's not bad. The June thing holds me up. That slows me down a little bit.
All right, Joey, we have breaking news.
All right.
I just saw a tweet from Kevin Wigginton that says, ILL, he is committed. The Michigan State offensive line transfer, 2 years of eligibility, started 6 games.
Bart Miller had that
season.
alert on too.
It
took Bart less than 50. I'm sorry to cut you off. 50 seconds.
All right, Joey, I have to throw out a text alert, throwing people behind the scenes. Give me 30 seconds on what you think Kevin Wigginton, Michigan State offensive line commit, what that brings to the Illini offensive line.
Yeah, minimally it brings depth, right? It's the guy who played 500 snaps last season in the Big Ten. He's going to play guard. I think you and I believe he's going to play guard. He had a 67.9 rating. So you're looking at a guy, you think your tackles are going to be J.C. Davis and TBD between maybe a Brandon Henderson, a Zy Chrysler. I think a dark horse, maybe a Hunter Whitenack. But then you get into that guard situation. And we saw a lot of rotation at left guard last year. Never really felt like they felt settled after they moved Isaiah Adams. So he would be a guy that you could slot in at one of those 2 guard positions. Zy Chrysler, obviously, depending on where he ends up, would be likely at the other one. I think it's pretty fair to think he's going to start at some position on this offensive line. So basically what he brings is another face in a rebuild offensive line room that took about a week and a half to rebuild here. Sonny, another Brett Signal, Kevin Wigginton. That's what we're talking about. I keep thinking Wigginton Pizza in Iowa City when I hear that, Jeremy.
Brett Bielema going to mention that. Yeah, Wigginton,
fingers crossed.
Wigginton.
But to me, it's another guy who you think right now is going to come in and compete for a starting spot at guard, and he's got Big Ten experience to do it. That's a good addition for Illinois to go out and in one day get commitments from two guys who you think could project into the starting lineup come week 1 next season. It's big. It tells me about the sell that this offensive line has. Even though last season, especially early on, wasn't beautiful, it tells me they've got a sell here that people are really buying into. Have I talked for long enough? I got the Illini Inquirer hotline had texted me, so I think we nailed it.
No, you got it. I got it on the message board, did all that behind the scenes. At some point, I got to turn the light on because it's getting dark here at Memorial Stadium, so people can potentially see our faces. Well, that sounded a great thing. But
nope, no need.
You hit on it. What a day for Bart Miller. Like, what do you think? How many beers is he crushing right now? Like, you got through with all this. You got a couple of days off. It's a dead period. It's the holidays. Man, all those guys in the recruiting department, I'd be crushing some beers right now. But Bart Miller, I'd be throwing some back. He did some work here. I mean, AJ Dennis and now Wigginton and JC Davis, who's an immediate plug and play starter at left tackle. Like, I'm thinking depth chart, Joey. And I sit here. We mentioned this earlier in the podcast, so sorry for repeating, but you feel like you're starting to get a too deep of guys that can you trust 8 or 9 guys to play? Because let's go through this. J.C. Davis is your starting left tackle. Guard, Wigginton probably left guard, right? Center, Josh Kreutz, who I think is going to be a team captain this year. Right guard, Zy Chrysler, Brandon Henderson, one of those two. The other one, is it Zy Chrysler, Brandon Henderson? Josh Geske is competing for a spot. Hunter Whitenack is competing for a spot. I feel like those guys will get better with another year of experience. Desmond Schuster's the ultimate wild card, JUCO edition, top 50 JUCO prospect last year. And then I think guys like TJ McMillan and AJ Dennis, like those are guys going to be pushing to try and get in this 2 deep. I like that competition. It just feels like maybe for that 5th spot, there wasn't the competition they needed. And then the 6 and 7 spot just wasn't quite as good or quite as ready as you needed. So obviously you had 2 starting positions to fill, but the guys who were depth last year, Whitenack, potentially Geske, McMillan, like these guys are still depth now, but they're pushing for starting jobs. I think that's a really positive sign for Illinois moving forward. Like the 2 deep is starting to feel a little bit better. Now Davis has got to prove himself. Can he be as good as Julian Pearl? We'll see. Can whoever's playing right tackle be as good as Isaiah Adams, who's pretty good at the end of the year, and is going to be drafted in the middle rounds most likely. That is to remain to be seen, but I feel like you're definitely improving 5 through 9 on this offensive line depth chart. I don't think Kreutz is going to get any worse. I think Wigginton is going to get better, obviously, with more time with this staff. Geske,
2 years of eligibility for Wigginton, which is big.
Yes.
We haven't mentioned that, but that's big.
Yes, 2 years of eligibility for him. So, man, just upgrading that offensive line. What a day that is, immediately and long term, Joey. Like Bart Miller and Terrence Jamison had the best days today, but I think Bart has now taken the cake with these 2 transfer additions.
I think that is probably right. I keep coming back to the Kansas game, Jeremy, and not just that in a vacuum, but those first 2 weeks. I truly, like, we just named a lot of guys, like a lot of guys on this offensive line who would be in that 2 deep, and we couldn't say that a year ago. I think that scared the heck out of them. I think it truly did. They had very, very little wiggle room. If one of their tackles went down last year, if Zy Chrysler went down for an extended period of time, they did not have a lot of wiggle room. Now, all this is still on paper, right? Like these guys have to be able to go in there and produce in spring ball and practice and fall camp, but you're seeing more, in theory, depth happen. And it's just, that hasn't been there. They've been fighting to fill that depth basically since they got here, and they've had to patchwork it almost year after year. So to see that start to, on paper, come to fruition is what we thought this program was going to be when Brett Bielema and Bart Miller were hired. And you're starting to see that now. And it gives some of those guys, those guys that they recruited, especially in the last 2 classes, time to develop. So you're not Alex Palczewski or Vidarian Load early on. And like Brett Bielema's talked about being very cognizant of that, not putting guys out there where it falls apart immediately and you kind of hamper their confidence moving forward. So
Yeah.
this is adding Wigginton's a big piece of that. And now he's got to come in and we got to win the job first, right? But I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to win one of those two guard spots.
All right, Joey, let's we'll get to a couple more questions before we get out of here. It's been a long day. We started at 5 and we're ending around 5 here. But let's bring up the commit section here and pick our guys. Do you have a guy that you like more in the rankings, or just the guy who stands out? 24/7 Sports, by the way, higher on Carlos Orr than the consensus. They have him as the second highest rated guy, or one of the top offensive guys in the class. Didn't have another Power 5 offer, so 24/7 Sports definitely higher on him than others. But as you go down this list, who's your one guy?
My one guy, boy.
You can give two if you want.
Well, I just looked, Eddie Turk seems a little low to me on there. I think he's awfully good.
He is just the type of lineman, and I keep saying this, but I'm going to keep saying this. He's the type of lineman who goes to Iowa, who goes to Wisconsin, who goes to Northwestern, who goes to Minnesota at times. Brett Bielema got that guy. Like, it is so important. Get that suburban offensive, defensive lineman. I have no idea where he's going to play. It sounds like defensive line. He could end up on the offensive line, though. Eddie's going to get a chance to play defensive line. That's where he wants to play. He could potentially move to the offensive line eventually. But I think he's a better defensive line prospect at this point of his career. I liked his film on that side. I've seen him live. Great strength, great athleticism for his size. Just a physical player that I think has a really high floor. I'm really excited about him because I've seen that guy go to these other Big Ten schools for so long. So to get him, I thought that was a significant addition.
Yeah, I did too. Angelo McCollum, Jeremy, is a little like I believe in productivity, and he's not playing it. I covered a lot of 1A, 2A football. We're covering high school sports. That's not a knock. I love covering it. Sometimes stats can be inflated there, right? They just can. Angelo McCollum's playing really good competition, and he put up stats. I mean, he was a very, very disruptive player as a senior. I like what he can do. I like what he can bring. Thought it was interesting. Brett Bielema mentioned possibly a nose guard, like a quicker Calvin Avery, someone who's going to give you versatility, a little bit of versatility on that defensive line. I just think his productivity speaks, and he's not the biggest guy, right? He's 6'2", but I think he's a guy who can really, in time, be a disruptor or be somebody who's a starter on that defensive line in the Big Ten.
Yeah, he was one of my guys. I thought his senior film was really impressive. I mean, this was a great eval by Terrence Jamison because he barely had any film as a junior, had an injury, but he was dominant as a senior. As you said, 25 tackles for loss, 12 sacks. I think he had 3 technique written all over him because of how explosive he is. He reminds me of, he's not quite the closing speed, but just his compact body, but he's so strong. Like, he's not Calvin was big, like it needed to trim down. Angelo does not need to trim down. He can add muscle and do all those things, but it's just he's so quick for how big he is that he's got some of those little Johnny traits that I think he can be a 3 technique, but maybe if he can be that at nose with a couple 20 to 25 pounds added to him, that'd be great. I am so high on Vernon Woodward. His junior film I thought was fantastic. His senior film still looked really good. Just the instincts, the size, the incredible length. He's 6'2", but he's longer than that. And I think at times we've seen this year with Taz Nicholson or Xavier Scott or Tyler Strain, you need length. Like Zach Toby showed that at times. Now he's got to become more consistent in what he does. But I thought that showed up great on his film. So he's a guy I'm really, really high on. And then I think Demetrius John, I think Angelo McCollum's got a higher floor. I think he's just is what he is. I think it translates well. His lack of length is the concern with McCollum. Demetrius John is not a finished product, but that's what makes him so exciting. He's got great length. He uses that extension really well. It's what makes Keith Randolph really, really good. But I just think he's got all the athleticism, the speed to be dynamic. Plus, he's got a frame, Joey, that looks like a basketball player right now, kind of a thinner waist that I think once you add strength to him, he's going to keep his athleticism. So get him up to 280, 290. I think he's going to be Keith Randolph-like, potentially on the defensive line. So I like the defensive linemen in this class. I thought they had a really good group. I thought Terrence Jamison of the Preps was as good as anybody as a recruiter.
I want to. We had a film break.
I'm going to turn my light on, Joey. So hold on. You got to talk for 10 seconds.
I hate when I got to do this. Just put me on the spot here. Oh, we had a film breakdown with Brett Bielema. Jeremy can't hear this, but eventually he'll get around to uploading that to our YouTube page. But during this breakdown, you mentioned Carlos Orr earlier, Jeremy, and he 24/7 is higher on him. When watching the film with Bielema and seeing him kind of run down, did you get any Casey Washington vibes from him?
Your guy. He's definitely longer than Casey.
Right.
That's what.
Now Casey's hands were just as good as you'll find, but like
he's faster. Like Carlos is faster. I am so excited to watch what George McDonald does with the talent he has. You know how like tantalized I am with Ashton Hollins. Like this, so
also,
long.
I don't blame you. Like standing, if you look, I know we're very blessed to be able to stand the places we do and watch what we do and interact with who we do. But if you get a chance to stand near Ashton Hollins, just observe how long he is. He is exceptionally long.
He belongs on the basketball court. Like he looks like a small forward, right? Like what you have on the wing. Like he wouldn't look out of place with the Illinois basketball team. He's legit like 6'5". So he's so long, and then you're seeing the skill development, right? Like he can actually run routes. He was a high school quarterback. Like Isaiah Williams, a high school quarterback. So the development of George McDonald, I think, has really been strong. It's just he had three players that were so far and above, like prepared and physical, like Isaiah, Pat Bryant, and Casey Washington, that we didn't really get to see these other guys. I think there's going to be a much more open receiver rotation next year to where we're going to see more of these guys. At slot, I don't think it's going to be 85% of one guy, right? Like it was this past year. You're going to see Hank Beatty, Mario Sanders, Kenari Wilcher, if Tyshawn gets healthy, but you probably see 2 or 3 of those guys potentially getting in. But Malik Elsey, like there's so much talent there. What does a full year of development of having him in practice? Remember, he's a guy who got here in June. What can that look like? Kenari Wilcher is a burner. What does that look like with a full year of development? So I'm excited about seeing some of those guys develop and what George McDonald can do, because what he got out of Casey Washington at the end of this year was amazing. What he got out of Isaiah Williams the last 3 seasons was great. Pat Bryant, I think, could be a number 1 star receiver in the Big Ten. So that's a group like I know there's a lot to replace. And it's not going to be easy, but I think they have talent because of what George has done. I think they got a good position coach.
Yeah, I think and I'm just using these numbers. These aren't the actual snap counts. I think not having 3 guys with 1,000 snaps and then 8 guys with 150 snaps, like obviously you're going to gravitate towards those 3 guys. And Illinois did that. But to have less of a snap disparity between your wide receivers this year is going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out, because you can't just lean on, hey, we trusted Pat Bryant, Casey Washington, Isaiah Williams. Like you're going to have to develop trust, in-game trust with some of these younger wide receivers, and we know there's talent there. So that's how that rotation shakes out, how it emerges. That's a huge storyline going into spring ball and fall camp.
All right, let's wrap this up with a few questions. We got to get out of here. Kyle asks, what was the biggest miss from a positional standpoint? There's not like a true safety in this class with Chase Green gone, but Chase Green ended up at Tulane. It's a good group of 5 program. So I think you can read what happened there. I think with some injuries to guys, they're going to have multiple years. I think safety could be a position to add a depth piece in the transfer portal. So that one, you probably could use somebody. Luke Williams was the guy you wanted there, and to lose him to Purdue. But Kevin Kane and Ryan Walters are the lead recruiters for Luke Williams. Naperville North, yes, 4-star defensive back. They get him to go to Purdue. His brother they brought in as a walk-on transfer, Zeke Williams, who's at Northern Illinois. So cap tip to them. That I think he would have been here if Ryan Walters and Kevin Kane were still here. And then Darian Dupree was a tough miss, but you got a really good running back that I think is very on the same tier, same kind of player, maybe a little bit different, but I'm not too worried about that one.
Tight end, like at one point.
Yeah, tight end's a need.
Yeah, but at one point you seemed committed to take 2. Carson Conkle has ended up at SIU, similar to Chase Green. I would imagine probably read into that one how you wish. So, but the thing is, and I thought Barry Lundy's point was really real. Yep, Wupapi, tight end. Yeah, well, okay. Like you probably put that on there, but guys who can do all of the things are going to 10 schools in the country, right? So,
I will say, I thought Brett Bielema, when he came here, I thought selling tight ends would
yep.
be easier. I thought they would have done better recruiting that position, at least from a star perspective. Like, I think Henry Boyer is a Power 5 tight end. I think, obviously Tanner Hollinger, I like, but he's a developmental guy, probably. Like, Nate Ginn's a developmental guy. Owen Anderson had some Power 5 offers, but I just thought that with Hunter Henry, with so many draft picks, I think 5 draft picks at tight end, I thought he would sell that a little easier. Maybe if Tip Ryman gets on the NFL roster, maybe that helps. I think Tip has been a great developmental story for this staff, but it's kind of a position I thought they would recruit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% with you. I'm thinking, the in-state, one guy went to Clemson. So, I mean, I can't beat Clemson. I mean, it's a tough win over Clemson, right? So I get it. I mean, Conkle ended up at an FCS school. So I'm looking at the state of Illinois here, Jeremy, kind of rambling.
Yeah, there was good tight ends. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I thought that was a position they might have landed. Like, and this is no slight to Tanner Hollinger, who I like.
Grant Stack would be a guy you can look at, right?
Yeah. Like, I thought
Eric
they would have
Carner.
won one of those. Eric Carner, SEC. So that's fair that I thought the position on paper you would have had like a really high 3-star or 4-star guy by now.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, Taylor asked, should we be worried about the lack of 4-star or better recruits? Seems like we recruit depth well, but are missing those top end guys. AJ Dennis is a big one. Khalil Valentine's 4-star composite. Caden Fagan was a 4-star. Malik Elsie was a 4-star. Some places had Tyshawn. I think Rivals said Tyshawn is a 4-star, so you can look into that.
Eddie Turk's in that conversation.
Yeah, Eddie Turk's in that conversation. So I get it. Like, those stars are kind of matter. I do think when you're getting top 247 talent, those guys are more likely to work out, because I think these guys at 24/7 do a pretty good job of that. They are getting some, though. And I think they're getting guys right on that fringe. I would always have like top 700 prospects as 4-stars. I've been saying this for a while, because when we have 124 stars in basketball, there's 6.5 times as many football players. So why don't we have 700 4-stars? But it's all because of the NFL draft, and that's how we are judged. And I don't agree with it. But like Keith Randolph, Johnny Newton should have been 4-star level prospects. They were not. So my whole point of that rant, Joey, is to say, like, if you go to the composite and you see top 700 guy, to me, that's basically a 4-star. And they're getting a lot of those guys.
Yeah, look, should we be concerned is the question. If you want, I guess, right? I mean, I know that seems like I'm kind of cheating the answer. You need talent. Like, talent, the stars are stars for a reason. They're not always right. There's misses, there's overlooks, there's oversights. I understand that. Like, yes, but I think Illinois is still getting talent. And I think it's hard. Here's what I guess I think people are kind of at right now. It's like Brett Bielema and his coaching staff have talked about being a developmental program, right? It's been 2 years, which it's enough time in some cases, but it's not enough time in some. So it's hard. Like, people want to see the fruits of the recruiting wins, right? Like, those don't always turn up in the window that we've currently existed in. So that's
it's like why you want to see Dre. It's why you want to see Dre Gibbs Wallhorn play right away. It's because it's the new shiny toy. It's like, hey, so is Marcus Damask and some of these other guys. Like, I get it, and plus the transfer portal you get worried about and all of that. But yeah, that takes time. It takes time to see it. We saw a little bit with Caden Fagan. We didn't see it with Malik Elsie, because why would you sit him for what Casey Washington and Pat Bryant were doing this year?
That's right. And Sabor Kareem, right? Another 4-star guy. So
here's the other point.
Talent, dude. Like, you need talent.
Yes,
need talent, but they're getting talent.
And I think what everyone's looking at is the Big Ten is so daunting. Like, the Big Ten is so daunting. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm setting my expectations low. But I am not looking at Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon now and Penn State and saying Illinois needs to compete with that. I look at Illinois needs to compete with Purdue, Nebraska, who have higher ranked recruiting classes and have more 4-stars. So you got to overcome that with evaluation and development, and retention is really important nowadays. But also Minnesota, Washington. I still believe Illinois has a higher ranked recruiting class than Washington.
Unless Washington, by average star ranking, right? Which I think is a pretty reasonable place to look.
I believe it was by composite, but I'll look at that again. But like, they are in the same tier with these programs. Like, Iowa is a little bit above Illinois, but not ridiculously. Minnesota, Washington's just a little bit ahead. Illinois is with Michigan State. They're ahead of Indiana, UCLA, Northwestern. They're right there with Maryland. Like, they're in that same tier. Like, this is not a huge leap from, like, even Purdue in Illinois. Purdue's got 6 more commits, so they have more points and all these things. So, like, I kind of look at tiers when you look at these rankings. Like, Wisconsin has 9 4-stars. They had a hell of a recruiting class. Illinois is not recruiting at their level right now. USC has 11. Nebraska has a 1 5-star and 7 4-stars. You are not in that tier. They're in the tier with Purdue, Iowa, Washington, Rutgers, Minnesota, Maryland, Michigan State. That's what I want to get above those guys. Like, that is what I'm looking for if I'm Illinois. And then you take the next step and you keep trying to build. And, you know, they've added some 4-stars in the last couple of classes. Can you add 5 in the next class? But it's difficult when you don't win games. And that's where winning becomes really important for this team and developing and getting the most out of their talent.
One of the better points I saw, and shout out to whichever message board poster framed it for me to think like this. You look at average star ranking. Illinois is like 1.5 away. I think they're in 14th out of 18 right now, Jeremy. So they're 1.5 away from being in 18th, like dead last. But if you flip it the other way, they're 1.5 away from being like, what are they, 10th, 9th or 10th?
I think it's 8th or 9th, yes.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of variance between.
It's where the
8
recruiting
through
rankings have
14.
some flaws, right?
Right.
Like, and they're not everything. And that's what I mean. Like, Illinois is in that mix. They weren't even close. They were last or 13th year after year after year, not even close to these programs they're trying to compete with. So if you want to be concerned about, like, yes, if you have to develop better, you have to evaluate better. Can you do those things? Let's talk about it in 2 years, right? That's when we really know.
That's the hard part, because for this program, like, this development stuff takes time. So, like, I understand, like, when people freak out about recruiting rankings, and the rankings are where they are. Like, Illinois is ranked where it's ranked, and it's in the bottom half of the Big Ten and closer to the bottom fourth of the Big Ten. And, like, people say, well, what about, you know, insert player? But, like, those guys had time to develop, right? It's like, that's what's missing. Is like, we can't judge this fully. Maybe this year on that 22 class, but to me, the real first, that's not fair, because the 22 class was the first full recruiting cycle. So, like, I guess now you start to look at that class, and the next year you look at that 23, and that's when you can really start to fairly base your evaluations on those classes.
I will say, like, 2017 was Lovie Smith's best recruiting class by the rankings, and I felt the best about their approach that year. That class ended up awesome. Go back, look at that. Alex Palczewski, Kendrick Green, all those guys, Bobby Roundtree, Owen Carney. Just a really good, solid class of a bunch of good football players. I felt really good about it. They started to get some higher-end guys, Isaiah Williams, Marquez Beeson, things like that. But the depth started to trail off. They just weren't winning as many Power 5 battles. You know, Keith Randolph, Johnny Newton were some good battles, but all of a sudden you're battling some Group of 5 programs. And all I'll say is, like, this feels – Bielema's first 3 classes feel really 2017-ish, especially the last 2. This doesn't feel like you're relying on 2 or 3 guys to do it all. You got to develop that depth. That's going to be so important. All their evaluations are going to be important, but we see practice sometimes, Joey. We see these guys up close. The team has looked different. They've looked longer. They've looked bigger, looked stronger, all those different things. So I still think they're heading in the right direction. Is it a rocket ship? Nope. But I just don't ever think Brett Bielema was ever going to be that. So I hate to say it, but, like, talk to us in 2 or 3 years and we'll really be able to evaluate how they recruited. And that's what these recruiting classes are. Give us 4 or 5 years. We'll be able to talk about it. 3 years, we'll be able to talk about 2022 class. Was it great? Was it not too good? Was it not a great start? 3 or 4 years after that, 2023, how do we look at that? That's the hard part of this.
Yeah, it's tough. And that's why every coach who signs, like, every new coach has like a 6-year deal, because it takes time to get there. Like, that's the reality of it.
All right, you got anything else? I think we've talked enough, done enough today.
Kyle got a full workout in during this pod. He said he's going to look like JW. I'm guessing not me.
Josh Whitman?
No, Josh from the comments. I would assume Josh Whitman probably
I meant
a workout.
JW,
Oh, yeah,
Josh
yeah.
Whitman.
Yeah, that's probably. Let us know, Kyle.
Glad we help you burn some calories today.
Good for your
Thank
phone
you to
battery.
everybody. Thank you to everybody for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. If you stuck with us for the whole 2.5 hours, salute to you. But as you head out, hit the like button, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell. We really appreciate you before we got here, thank you to Barry Lonnie. Thank you to Aaron Henry. Thank you to AJ Dennis and Tyshawn Griffin. And I'm missing one, Joey, off the top of my head. Trey Petty as well.
Petty.
I knew I'd freeze. I'm thinking about 5 people's names. Thank you to all those guys. Appreciate all their insight, their time. It's a culmination. It's a big moment for those young men and their families. Brett Bealman was saying there were tears on some of the FaceTimes they're having today. So their lives have changed. And for this coaching staff, go have a beer and have a few days off if you can while you hit up some transfers. So, Joey, thank you. Great work, man. You worked your butt off covering this class as well. So great work doing all this. And we'll eventually have a day off, right?
Maybe. I'm going to cheat for an extra night in St. Louis tomorrow, get some content from bragging rights day before, and I might find my way to a beer in St. Louis tomorrow if I had to. If I had
beer.
to guess. Just the one?
I would set the over-under a little higher than that, but that's just me.
Just one.
Just one. All right, everybody have a great night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.